Hey there! Hey, if you're here, you're on the right channel. Welcome to Ham Radio. We're going to start shortly. You might want to grab a cold one, grab yourself a little bit of a beverage, and just stick around. I'm sure it's not going to be too long now.
Hey, I'm here too, do everything that guy says, and we'll be on just shortly.
Hey there! Hey, if you're here, you're on the right channel. Welcome to Ham Radio. We're going to start shortly. You might want to grab a cold one, grab yourself a little bit of a beverage, and just stick around. I'm sure it's not going to be too long now.
Hey, I'm here too, do everything that guy says, and we'll be on just shortly.
Hey there! Hey, if you're here, you're on the right channel. Welcome to Ham Radio. We're going to start shortly. You might want to grab a cold one, grab yourself a little bit of a beverage, and just stick around. I'm sure it's not going to be too long now.
Hey, I'm here too, do everything that guy says, and we'll be on just shortly.
Hey there! Hey, if you're here, you're on the right channel. Welcome to Ham Radio. We're going to start shortly. You might want to grab a cold one, grab yourself a little bit of a beverage, and just stick around. I'm sure it's not going to be too long now.
Hey, I'm here too, do everything that guy says, and we'll be on just shortly.
Hey there and welcome. Welcome to this wonderful experience that we have here on this beautiful Saturday that we're experiencing nice overcast weather. We have, you haven't had any two-stroke ATVs drive by today. That's great. You haven't had any Honda Accords, as you usually get, the tan-colored Honda Accords. Daniel?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, because I feel like when I talk to you, sometimes you ignore me.
I'm here. Introduce me, bro.
Well, I have to wait 7 seconds for the actual scene to move, Daniel.
We're good.
That's the way we do things in the background here. Welcome to Ham Radio, the best show on Saturday. Honestly, there's no other better show that you could watch than this. We're here at Yumi Studios, Florida. I was waiting for one of your famous improvs.
Ready? I'm here. Hold on. Oi, I'm here today, Pancake. It's British Donnie.
Okay, I told you from the beginning that it's offensive to me. That accent is offensive to me. I'm sure it's grossly offensive to anybody, not just somebody from the UK. So today we have a very special episode where we're going to have a little bit of an interview with somebody that I personally hate just because of how deep he was able to penetrate me, of course, with mentalism. I only long for the day when I'm penetrated physically by this man, but mentally he's penetrated me in a way that I can't come back from. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat with Peter Turner. But as far as that, I think that's going to be the point of this episode. We have your questions that you sent in from Instagram and various channels from there. We didn't have a voicemail, right?
We might have. I'm not sure.
If you want to leave a voicemail, you could look at the link in the description below, anchor.fm/hamradioshow, and you could see a little bit of you could drop a little bit of a voicemail. Yes, you have to make an account. Okay, it's a minor inconvenience. It's 2020. Okay, that's all we ask for. Just make a little bit of an account, and then you can leave a voicemail, and we'll answer it. And I think that's pretty much as good of an intro as we're gonna get, right? So should we just jump right into this, or
are we good?
Are you gonna drop an improv? Or are you gonna?
Are we good, bro?
Well, I just want to point out today that you've been annoying just from even fucking texting me today in the morning.
No, that's your fault.
Okay, so first of all, I woke up. No, you don't want me to get into that? No, I woke up hungover. All right, let's just get into this before, just so I can vent my anger on your fucking ass. I woke up hungover. All right, you know that from the video I posted yesterday.
Yeah,
that I was hungover.
That was a good video.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Even though I was trashed when I did, I was hungover as fuck, Daniel. And the first text that I get is regarding like, oh man, I just want to get a confirmation. I don't know what's going on here. You gotta let me know, man. I'm like, listen, Daniel. All right, we're gonna be able to do this. Okay, I'm gonna hold your hand through this.
You're a piece of shit.
So we have Peter Turner here. We got the great Peter Turner. We met when you were shooting something here called How to Read Minds.
Do I bring him in already?
You could bring him in.
Yeah.
You
Are we good now?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
I give you permission. Namaste. Is he here?
He's on.
Can we see him?
Welcome, Pete.
Hey guys, thank you for having me on.
Pretending like we're not having we haven't had a conversation before this. Isn't that the worst part about these? That you got to pretend like, oh, hey, Peter, this is the first time I talk to you. How you doing?
Do you know the problem is with stuff like that is if later on now you ask me to perform something on you or Danny, they're going to assume that we set something up. That's the only problem with shit like that. And it's not. The conversation we had beforehand were actually about women, Instagram, beer, and the stack watch, and nothing else.
That is true.
So then, you're not really missing out on much, to be fair.
I was going to ask you, wait, hold up, women. I don't remember talking about women. Did we?
You were talking about USB sticks.
Am I this retarded that I actually
Welcome to 2020, Piggy.
Right? Yeah. Geez, I've been having lapses in memory. Like, funny enough that we're talking about something that's like a stack watch, but I've been having lapses in memory. Where the other day, I finished shooting a video. I took the memory card out of my camera and I put it on the table. Then I closed the camera. Then I reopened the camera and I looked for the memory card that I just took out. And I said, oh, the memory card's never been in the camera. I didn't record anything. That was literally my thought process when I did that. So I think I'm losing my mind slowly.
Slowly but surely.
You don't have any Peter Turner wisdom as how I could improve my memory?
Yeah, it's a very easy thing. Just don't partake in doing fuck all. And if you do nothing, you can't forget it.
There you go.
Procrastinate as much as possible.
Words of wisdom.
Or, even better than that, try to find ways to convince everybody else that they're forgetting things. And then you just remind them of things that didn't exist in the first place, and you look like a genius, and then you're all good.
I feel like talking to fucking Peter Turner is like talking to like a Jedi.
He's the Yoda.
I'm constantly like at defense, like in defensive mode, because I'm like, oh wait, when is he gonna start entering my mind somehow.
Check
Has it
your
already
pockets.
started?
I think Peter Turner and I sound exactly the same when we talk, though. When I have my British accent, Donnie, everyone's a genius. I think we have the exact same voice.
Let me tell you, Peter, if we're ever in the, I mean, I'm sure we're going to see each other sometime, but if Danny happens to be in front of you and you start beating him up because you're offended at his accent, I won't stop you. Like, I won't even, I'll probably join in on the stomping just for the sake of wanting the catharsis.
One little swift kick whilst he's on the floor.
Yeah. So I was going to tell you, Peter, we're talking yesterday about interviews and how people typically ask you, the same questions in regards to, they have you and you're a world famous mentalist. You've consulted and you have a lot of experience, but they ask you, what's your favorite trick? What is it that you do with organic, no prop situation, which I think are the worst questions to ask you because you are somebody that's gone through a lot. And I think your experiences are more valuable than asking you what your favorite, fucking card trick is, which I guess that comes from experience when it comes to mentalism or magic, that you rather ask somebody about their experiences rather than what their favorite tricks are, which seems to be the question you get the most. But I just want to ask you, what could you have possibly gotten into that wasn't mentalism?
So I was a session musician. So, around about the time that my son were born, I was a session. I used to work in a studio and I used to record samples that got put onto records, and they had me cleaning the toilet, so I left. I said, you can fuck off. But I've also got it's a joiner in England, a carpentry apprenticeship under my belt, so I could have been a woodworker. And I made sure that I got that. I left school early. I never finished school, never got any grades, and I left and ended up working for a floor fitting company for a joiner. So I could have been any manner of things. I worked in a bar. I worked in a picking and packing factory. I worked as a die caster.
You would make a great bartender.
Oh, I wouldn't. I'd be fucking horrific. Do you know what? This is the God's honest truth. I met up with somebody a few years ago, and they thought they were being polite by saying this. At the time I worked, I used to I was doing gigs and table hopping in between, but I worked in this bar, and that was my main source of income. And the guy found out that I were a mind reader, and he says, you know what? He says, I want to bring something up that I never mentioned at the time. He said, I understand now why I used to stare weirdly at people. And I'm like, fucking didn't know I was staring weirdly at people. So I just had to play it off as if I were being cool. Yeah, that's probably, I was just probably reading people. I felt to myself, you cheeky bastard.
Yeah, that's fucking weird. I did notice that though, about you, that what's great and what's funny being around you is whenever somebody asks you, like, why you were doing something or they question you, you always have like a response. You always have like a quick response to get back at them, which I found hysterical, in the sense of like trying to portray this character that you have.
Well, I'm just, the honesty is that I'm this low down dirty piece of shit from the lowest of the low, the arsehole of England, Bradford. And when you grew up where I grew up, if you had something on Christmas Day, you had to fight for it to keep it on Boxing Day. And so I found that if I weren't fighting with my hands, I was fighting with my mouth. So spending time with me in person is different to what you see online. When you're watching videos of me perform, it's solely about the performance. But I'm interested in quick quips and comedy and fun comebacks, and I like a little bit of banter, with people. And so I'm in a few WhatsApp groups where me and my close friends, and I get ripped on more than anybody else. Because of my background, they assume that I'm a gypsy.
Okay.
And so I constantly get stuff about caravans and stand-up washes and all sorts of stuff like that. And I don't mind, I just have a bit of fun with it. And you learn in those groups that it's great, because the things that you do learn is that if you ever come across a heckler, the things that you're saying in these groups or the things that these are saying to you in this group is going to be much worse than what anybody says to you when they're trying to be PC on the streets or in a bar or in a gig or whatever. So I just think it comes down to the fact that nobody could really offend me. No matter what you say, I don't care. I'd probably agree with you and then give myself some more shit, bury myself to the depths of I don't know, and then come back at you with something that's even deeper, and you can't say anything because I've just done it to me first.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. You actually mentioned heckler there, which I find interesting because that seems to be a lot of the questions that at least I get. I'm sure you get it all the time with your style of what it is that you do. But the question that seems to be the most resounding is, what do you do when a person bothers you? And me personally, I think that comes from people not understanding they need to be people first. And a lot of times they're a magician or a mentalist first, and they're thinking, how would a mentalist approach this? Really, you have to approach it as a person. And you said it right. If there's anybody that's gonna hit on you, it's gonna be yourself. That's gonna hit on yourself as hard as you can. So if they hit you with something, you just gotta be a person about it. I don't know if you agree with that sentiment, or if you.
I do. I think also you've got to. It depends what frame of mind you're in. You see, where I'm from, it's probably about 30% hecklers and 70% of people that are there to just do other things. They're not there to see you. So you've got this audience that are focused on heckling, and then 70% of people that were never really there to see you, but they're forced to enjoy what it is that's on the stage. And bars around here and clubs and other things like that, they're very easily sidetracked. They're not like theatres. So I used to plan things into the show that purposefully give people reason to heckle me so that I could use it as part of the revelation,
Nice.
just because I knew that were going to happen anyway. But I tried to be human, and I tried to say, look, if it starts to get certain gigs, you've got people that start to get violent and start when they can't figure something out, they're threatening you to know what it is. I've been at gigs where people have bit their own mum's thumb off. They've bottled each other. I once at a Q&A, this is how rough the area is. That I did cut my teeth for 10 years in working men's clubs. And I'm sat in this club one day and I'm doing this question and answers act. And so these billets have been handed out around the audience. I've swapped them all out. I'm sat back in the interval just going through them. Oh, this is juicy. It's like Emmerdale. I'll pick this one. I'll pick this one. I'll pick this one. And one thing I always made a point of doing is personally approaching the person that ran the venue, because I wanted a repeat booking, and I just do a classic peek on theirs instead of switching it in with the rest of the billets, because then it ensured that I knew their initials and I knew the billet that they were thinking of and whatever else. And this one woman, I'd said to everybody explicitly, don't ask me about death, don't ask me about somebody that's passed on, don't ask me about health or anything that I'm not qualified to answer. And of course I said that, and she'd asked about her brother. She's like, is my brother in heaven? And I'm like, shit, I've got to answer this question because it's the booker. And I want repeat work, but at the same time I said not to ask it. So I'm on stage, she comes up, what about my question? So I invite her up onto the stage. She stood at the side of me. There's like two big gypsy families sat out in the audience, and then a few other families in the back. And I start to go through this thing, and I say, even though I asked you not to think of this thing's been on your mind so much that I feel it's outweighed any other question that you could ask. And I said to her, does Paul mean anything to you? And that was the name of the brother or whatever. Anyway, she starts freaking out, and all of a sudden her attention hones in on the fact that I must somehow be psychic. And I said, I want you to know that I'm not psychic, and all I'm doing is picking up on your own thoughts when it comes to this type of question. I mean, you already know the answer to this question, I feel. You just want me to confirm it for you. So she says, yeah. And as I've mentioned Paul, and I said, now I did say not to ask about anybody that's passed on, but I'd be right in saying that Paul has passed on, correct? And the moment I said that, one of these members of this family down in the audience must have known the fact that he'd passed away, and he died in a house fire, right? And so he shouts out, did he die whilst he were making himself a toasted cheese sandwich? And so this entire audience, are divided. Half of them have erupted in laughter, but this woman's family have just flipped. The next thing I know, she picks up this glass, she jumps down and she throws this glass into this guy's face. These two families now start to riot.
That's a bad bitch right there.
Oh, man. Then she comes back on the stage, and I'm like, I think I'm going to recess for 5 minutes. Anyway, long story short, as I said that I'm about to recess, she said, you will not. She goes, you better fucking carry on and answer my question. So I'm stood on this stage like, well, what do I do? So anyway, I said, I think you already know the answer to the question. In your heart's telling you yes, but your head's having a little bit of doubt. And I think undoubtedly the thing that you need to hear is that you need to follow your heart and not your head. Anyway, with that said, I'm going to go. And anyway, I made my way out, and they're all brawling and everything else. And I had a guy come in from France, a guy called James Charrier, and he's one of the greatest magicians on the planet. And so we're doing some work with him, and we were creating this big show for like a psychic-esque show thing for Apple. And around about the same time, Anthony Jacquin were working for Diesel. So there were these big corporate events in this big setting, and I were working on Apple and he were working on Diesel. And he says, I'd love to come and watch your show. So I said, well, I don't really let people come and see my shows. I said, because, I don't want anybody to be taking things from them or whatever. And he said, I promise, bro, I won't. So he comes in, he flies in from France. And I do this gig, and it's great. Everybody's having a good time. And then at the end of the gig, all we could hear were all these windows start to smash around the entire bar, right? Mm-hmm. So these windows are smashing, and the next thing I know, this kid's like got so pissed out of his head, drunk, that he's like kicking chairs. He starts throwing stuff. The landlord were like, hide behind this gate, and I'm like, oh, I'll be all right. So me and James are stood there. James is like pushing this gate closed, and his mum comes in and is like, calm down, and he grabs his mum's hand and bites his own mum's thumb straight off of her fucking hand, right? And so
That's pretty baller.
So the type of it was crazy, if you just mind blowing. So I've been to some pretty rough places and performed at some rough places. So when I got into like doing more theatres and more upper class establishments, it were a lot easier because you didn't really get the same type of hecklers. But once you've dealt with stuff like that mid-performance and had to keep moving, anything else just doesn't faze you. So the honest answer is that it depends how much of a cock I want to be.
Okay.
If I'm feeling in a good mood, I'll sort of humour it and just be human about it. And more often than not, they'll probably feel bad for doing it, and the entire audience are the people that, that take care of it. However, if I'm feeling like I want to be a cock, then I write it into my act as I'm going along. So I'll make it part. Like I was thinking the other day just about this very question. I was thinking if I were doing a stage show, and let's say I've come out and I've said that I'm a mentalist or a psychic or whatever you're portraying yourself to be, and you go out into the audience and you start asking people their names, invariably at some point you're going to get somebody say, well, you're the psychic, tell me, right? Or something like that, right? And wouldn't it be interesting to have an out hidden somewhere that says the first part of the show is going to be a test to out the psychic, to out the skeptics, right? So you make it out as though that entire first bit were just to out the person that were going to be the skeptic to work with in the first routine. So then you've invariably got your hit and you say, I knew 100% that one of you were going to do this, but let me prove it. Now you turn this easel round or whatever, and on it says the great skeptic test. I will go out into the audience and somebody will say to me this. Do you know what I mean? And now you've outed your skeptic. And then you say, it's going to be perfect, join me on the stage. And then I try to make a point about how I try to be social, not cerebral, whatever. But there's a few, just a couple of tips if there are questions that you've got. If anybody ever said, if you say to somebody, what is it you're thinking of? And they go, oh, you tell them you're a mind reader, and they go on, tell me what I'm thinking now. Well, I'll give you my answer to that question. Ask me, Pig Cake. Say, go on, then if you're a mind reader, what am I thinking now?
Oh, I cunt. No, I can't. See, I tried to go. Hey, man, if you're such a hotshot mind reader, how about you read my mind? What am I thinking of?
You're thinking about denying the next thing that I say to you.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Because
if you say yes, I win. If you say no, I say thank you, and I've won.
Yeah, it's literally a win-win.
Double bind, So, and if they say, am I? You say, if you don't know your own fucking mind, how do you expect me to know it?
Tremendous. That's
right.
Tremendous.
And so sometimes, and another thing that I used to do is I'd take this, I'd have these paper balls that I'd throw out into the audience in this pot. And at the same time every night, I'd put this one little gambit in. I'd wait till 8:15 or whatever time the gig were that night. And I'd take the paper ball and I'd throw it out into the audience. And I'd talk about how if you can take into account the factors and variables surrounding any given situation, it gives you this godlike ability to be able to predict the future. And as I lifted my hands up, I'd knock this ball of papers off the table, right? And if you got some knob at that point, shout out, well, you didn't see that coming, did you? I'd say, well, actually, let me prove my point. Open that paper ball. And they'd open the paper ball and it'd say inside at 8:45 tonight, a gentleman in the audience will shout out, you didn't see that coming, did you, right? And if they never shouted it out, then you never had to open the paper ball, right? So very disposable colour-esque. But I always thought to myself, you know that somebody's going to ask you to disappear their wife. Mm-hmm. So why not make a prediction? Just have a couple of multiple outs, one in your pocket, one in your wallet, with different hair colours on and stuff. So imagine, a blonde-haired gentleman comes up and says to you, can you make my wife disappear? You say, it's interesting you asked me that. Open your wallet. A blonde-haired gentleman tonight will ask me, can he make my wife disappear? And it becomes part of your show. And it's the difference is that it's quickly moved past if you make it a hit. Do you know what I mean? It's not all of a sudden you've not got that backwards and forwards and that horrible jarring moment where everybody's going, oh, just fucking get on with what it is that you've got to do. Uh-huh. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it depends. Like I say, if I want to purposefully be a bit of an arse, then I'll write it into the show that night and I'll decide I want it in the show. Sometimes I just out and out make a joke. I was once on stage with Atlas Brookins and Harrison Richards in Leeds. And I asked for the biggest skeptic in the audience. And so I invite this guy up onto the stage, and I move the chair like it must have been about 6 inches only over, and it caught the shoe of the guy that were coming up on the stage, and he sort of tripped as he were coming up the stairs. He didn't fall over, but he sort of stumbled. And I thought, shit, in my head I went, shit, like I've just nearly tripped a guy up. So I just looked at the audience and went, I do that to all the skeptics, and I just winked, right? And everybody erupted with laughing. And it looked like it were part of the show, and everybody just sort of moved past it. He sat down, and afterwards, Atlas come up and he was like, that was genius. He goes, it was genius how you and he thought I'd purposefully tripped the guy up to be able to make the comment. And that's what I wanted. So sometimes, have a few little jokes in your belt and you have to decide on your audience whether they're going to be too offensive or, just right. And you have to just know people. So in that respect, I think you do need to be a person. Yeah. But so to answer your question, it depends how much of a cock I want to be.
It's horrendous. It feels like a Norm Macdonald joke. 12 minutes, but it's like don't be depends on how much I want to be a dick. But two things that I got from that I think are quite interesting. Number one is here when it comes to heckling, I think the most you might get is somebody going, "Oh, I know how you did that." Over there, what I love is that you guys have such a fight culture that pretty much everyone is drunk at all points of time in a day. So it immediately turns into a brawl-like situation. So for me, that'd be like, oh my God, it's the craziest event of my life. For you, it's like, oh, it's Tuesday. It's literally Tuesday.
That's the thing. I mean, over there, I had that. I just did a corporate, well, not just did, but at Christmas time, I did a corporate event at the Moorlands, which is not far from here. And I had a guy say, oh, I know you do that. And one thing that you can do in that regard is, there's two ways you could deal with it. One is to give him the deck or give him whatever and say, well, you do it, which I don't like. What I do is I say, oh, great. Because, when I'm portraying whatever character is that I'm portraying using my intuition, whatever, I go, perfect. Well, how long have you known everybody here? And then they say like 4 or 5 years. And now I bail this guy out. So what I do is I say, you can be the eyes for everybody else to tell him just how credible this is because you can see the things that I'm doing. And then when he can't figure out what it is that you're actually doing, he doesn't want to make himself look stupid by going, oh, I don't know how you did that. He sits there and then has to fight your corner to prove his cause, right? So now he has to be on your side. So that's all I did. I was like, oh, well, this will be perfect. You can be the eyes of everybody else to prove that what I'm saying is genuinely what I'm doing, and then by the time you've fooled him with the first effect there, he don't want to look stupid. So he's going, yeah, he's genuinely doing it. It's real, Yeah. And now there's credibility for everybody else because you've taken the one guy that says he knows a bit about this and he's the qualifying member of that audience that tells everybody that what you're doing is legit, and it just makes your act more powerful.
That's what I always love about and appreciate about your style is that it's very people want this very directive sort of one size fits all sort of thing, but you really have to be pliable to the situation, and you're a very quick-witted individual, so it comes natural to you. But I guess to kind of like extrapolate on that, my only criticism about your style per se is that it works brilliantly for you, but when you put something out, it's people trying to imitate you. So it's a lot of people doing a really shitty Peter Turner imitation. Now, is that something that you are, with the stuff that you publish, are you comfortable knowing that people are going to be doing your stuff half-assed and never to the capacity that you're going to be able to do it? Or what's your mentality when it comes to that?
I mean, it's the same in any field when you think about it. I mean, not to compare myself to any sort of great. I mean, but you look at if you look at the guitar world, for example, people who play guitar, they listen to Paul Gilbert and they sit and they learn Paul Gilbert licks. It doesn't necessarily mean they'll be Paul Gilbert, but he's provided them with the way that he does it and how to get his sound. You can have the same guitar, the same amp, the same setup. You can sit there for hours and try to learn the same technique, and it's never going to be, and it's the same as painters. You can have Van Gogh, and then you can have somebody who paints like Van Gogh, but it's never going to be the same. And so I think the thing is this. The biggest lesson to take from all of that is I wanted to be Derren Brown. When I was 15 years old, I sat there and I put a YouTube video up recently, me sat in my little black coat with my briefcase talking about psychological illusions. And I wanted to be Derren Brown. I sat, and still I find myself now, and this is God's honest truth, I find myself sometimes doing that irritating nod thing that he does. And I just as a tick, sometimes in performance it comes out. So I think we all tend to imitate in some sense. But I think the honesty is this, is that instead of I give you a presentation and I give you a way that I perform a routine. And a lot of people think that a lot of the things that I do are ballsy, and they're not. If you look at the actual writing that surrounds the method, there's 4 or 5 different ways to do it, and it just comes down to experience of experiencing all those different outcomes to be able to know which road or route to take. So what I'd say is this: the best piece of advice whenever you take my material, Darren Brown's, Luke Jamay's, anybody's, it doesn't matter who it is, just look at it retrospectively and think, okay, what do I not like about this? And then instead of focusing on the things that you do like, focus on the things that you don't like, fix the thing that you don't like, apply the things that you do like, and it becomes your own via default without having to imitate anybody else. And that's it, you know, and so I always try to find the formula in no matter what I read. And everything I read, no matter what it is, I always find something great from because of that. I'll find the things that I love, I know they're in there, but I'll find the things that I don't like and I'll go, how would I approach this? How would I do it? And if you don't have the creativity to do that, then think about the situation, think about the plot or the, you know, the premise that surrounds it, and think, well, you know what, I'm a 15-year-old kid that's trying to be a tattooed 32-year-old man. This don't make any sense. You know, what's going to make more sense for me, my time, my age, you know, and just try to find, and that's what it really boils down to, is just, you know, we read something one way and we think that's the way we have to do it. And I'll give you a perfect example. Imagine you were handed an invisible deck, but you didn't have any instructions. What the f- would you do with it, right? So you wouldn't know. And so the way that you typically know the invisible deck is that you get somebody to think of a card. They've got hold of the box, they name the card, and you go, oh, it's really weird. 2 hours ago I sat down and I turned one card round in the box, right? But when I look at the invisible deck, I didn't think to myself, that's the way that I want to do it. What I did, I have this routine where, and I probably showed you whilst I were out in Miami, where I borrow a deck or I'll take a deck of cards, and it's a regular deck, and I'll have my invisible deck. I didn't show you the invisible deck kicker on it, but I have the invisible deck hidden under the table. I'll take a regular deck, you can look through it. I tell you to cut some off, we shuffle, we each turn a card round and slot it back in, and then we put the deck back together, and when we spread them, we both matched with the same card, right? Like you'll have the Queen of Hearts, I have the Queen of Diamonds, I have the mate of it. And I open with that. And I say, do you have a deck of cards with you? Or whatever, if you're a magician. If you're not, I'll say, yeah, take this separate deck. So I'll hand you a secondary deck. So now you've already seen the faces of all these. You've already played with them. You've already shuffled them. I say, take your deck under the table and shuffle it up, and I'll do the same. So now I take it up and I shuffle it. I say, now take one card out of your deck and turn it round, and I'll take one out of mine. And I'll even put mine in the box so that I can isolate it. And now what I do is the easiest deck switch in the world, because it's under the table. I bring the invisible deck out and put it on the table. And I say, is that fair? Could it have been any fairer? You shuffle them, mix them, turn it round. Mine's isolated. There's my prediction. Go through yours and show me what card you turn round. And now I just open my invisible deck, the relevant side up, and go through it, and the card that's the wrong way around. And in your head, your brain's blown, even if you know the invisible deck, because you approached it from a different angle. So, you know, sit and think about the different applications of the simple things that you've got.
Yeah.
And don't do them the way that they're written, and that's the biggest bit of advice that you can sort of take from that. You know,
that's I think I was telling you this yesterday. You're very when it comes to especially your YouTube channel. I've been watching your stuff a lot, and I really hope people are understanding the value that they're getting just from your ramblings and your rants, because you know you're a brain that granted for the size of your massive head, you do have a lot of insight when it comes to these, and you're giving away a lot of stuff like that. Personally, I think you could have packaged that and sold that as its own individual thing. So I really hope that people are getting and understanding the value from, you know, something like this, or what you're doing on the streams with Illusionist, or what you're doing on your own channel. So that alone is fucking tremendous. And I do hate you for your fucking ingenuity when it comes to that sort of shit. Now, what I did want to ask you is something that you mentioned earlier, which is about your act. In particular, that you mentioned that you don't necessarily want people to look at it because you're afraid, or not afraid, but you don't want people stealing shit, which is a very good and justifiable reason. But I want to ask you if you've ever had an incident where that solidified your necessity not to show people your act as it is. Have you had a situation where somebody stolen some shit? Have you had has that personally happened to you?
I think to be honest with you, when you're creating stuff, it happens to everybody at some point, you know, because we're all sort of in this bank, and there's only so many methods to choose from. And like, you know, again, back to the guitar analogy, there's only so many notes in an octave. At some point, you're going to hit upon the same ones as everybody else. But the thing that I don't want people to steal is not the methods and the effects. You know, I'm using the same stuff as everybody else, but it's little things like silly little things that I spend. a lot of time that I could spend with my family and other people creating that I don't want them to steal. So I'll give you an example, like Tequila Hustler. Tequila Hustler is a brilliant routine. It's a liar, truth teller type plot routine where they have a coin. But the way that I open that is I start with, an index card, and on one side it says the statement on the other side of this piece of card is true. And then on this side it says the statement on the other side of this piece of card is false. And I put it in the middle of the table, and I tell everybody that one side of the card is telling a truthful statement. Which one is it? And I let them sit and debate, and there's that little puzzle that's going on inside their heads that I really love. And that it's tiny little things like that for me, paradoxical moments where you've got your audience fighting over which side's, making a truthful statement or a false statement, and then you take it away from them. And you say, that's only a 50-50. You're a person with thoughts and feelings, and you can lie or tell the truth indefinitely.
Yeah.
And it's like the scope of what you're doing, like, for example, a memory divination. Like, I really love this, and I saw this on Reddit, and then I saw it somewhere else, and I can't remember where else I saw it, but it was a really great thing. Let's say that I wanted to divine a memory that somebody were thinking of. So I'll ask you this question, Pig Cake. If you were to choose between erasing every single memory you've ever made in favor of making memories from this point on, or never being able to make a single memory again, but keeping your older memories, which would you choose?
Personally, I think keeping the old memories.
And so you'd never make a new one again?
I mean, if that's the situation, yeah, I would go for that one.
Right. So it's that moment. I mean, you were quite quick to decide, but think about this. So the next time you meet somebody that's going to be meaningful in your life, you'll never be able to make a memory with them. If you ever had a child, you'd never be able to remember the first.
Or hanging out with me.
Or hanging out with Danny.
That's probably why I would want to forget a future memories.
But now imagine that you met somebody that said, I'd erase all my previous memories in favor of making new ones. And you say to them something along the lines of, well, if you could keep just one memory as an emotional piece of baggage to bring into the future, can you think about what memory that'll be? And they'd say, yeah, if you define that memory, it's always going to be the greatest memory they could ever think of.
Yeah.
But I love that's mentalism, that moment where the entire audience are there going, wow.
What would I do?
And they're puzzling in their own heads and their brains doing backflips. It involves your audience. It keeps everybody interested. Nobody wants to sit on the phone because they're too busy being part of that process. And that's, my show's packed with a lot of that. And it's packed with a lot of those profound moments where even if they're quick, they're only a sentence or two sentences long. It gives the audience time to think, whoa, like what's just happened to me? And when you leave, the effects, only the metaphors to prove the points that you've been making in the stories that you've woven throughout the entire show. And what I don't want is, I just hate to, I think only because it's not on a global scale. It's not like Darren Brown. As soon as somebody does something that Darren Brown's done, people just go, oh, it's Darren Brown's. It's just this person's. The problem is if somebody takes my show, and somebody decides to release it or air it for themselves, it's their show. And then I'm the one that looks like I've stolen it. And that's the thing I think that probably bothers me the most.
Okay.
But to your question, I've been very private, very, very private.
As you should be. As you should be. I think that's the right step. And I mean, granted, what you have released in the actual Magic community has been fantastic. Has been fucking phenomenal.
Do you know what I mean? I give enough, and so I don't think it's too much to just ask to keep a little bit for myself. And that's it. And that's the only thing that I've asked for freedom on. I mean, I'm not out there gigging every single week. And I think the thing that is for me the most interesting is, I don't gig as much as some people. Some people are gigging twice on a Friday, twice on a Saturday, once on a Sunday. But what I tend to find is that if I'm out on a Monday, in some way, shape or form, whether it's a call to a network or a producer or I'm consulting, I'll have to do a performance at some point. Tuesday, somebody will be asking me about something and I'll be performing. Wednesday, I'll be at the garage and somebody will be asking me there. Thursday, I'll go to the bar. Can you just give us 5 minutes? Friday, then I might have a gig, And my entire week from 9 a.m. till whatever time at night, even when I'm in bed, is laid working on that shit. And I live quite a boring life now I think about it. So I hate you for making me have to admit to myself, you've killed me in one question.
One question. I thought you were gonna make some sort of reference to Miami. I want to ask you about your time here in Miami, because I do remember seeing the video where you were. What killed me was there was one video in particular where you were talking about the wallet right? So you were showing the wallet that comes with the kit for the How to Read Minds kit, and I've never seen a dude look like you were physically melting more than you in that video, because you're showing how to do this wallet, and you're done, and you're wearing all black because you're going for the mentalist look. But
honestly, honestly, so I'll tell you a story, and I think so. I've talked about Sean Dunn recently in one of my Facebook lives. It's one of the greatest Facebook lives ever, because I said that the man needs a mirror to find his ass with both hands. Right? He's an absolute moron when it comes to business, and I don't mind saying it. He works for Penguin, but he's a decent guy. He's a really lovely guy, and I went out in business. He's just an idiot. He's an ape, but in real life, he's a decent guy. And the thing is that obviously it's hard for him to keep his personal bias towards that comment separate from, because I'm not calling him it. I'm saying his business practices. That'd be like me saying that if you took your glasses off, you can't see for shit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not meant as an offensive thing. I mean, it's not like I said that he's a shit mentalist, and if he stuck a shotgun up somebody's ass and pulled the trigger, he'd still miss.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I'm just saying that the guy is just in business an idiot.
Yeah.
And I went out to Columbus, and it were fucking roasting. It were absolutely roasting, man. It were boiling, and I'm peeling, and I can feel my skin physically. I felt like that robot out of Terminator when it fell in the lava.
Yeah. But you said Columbus? You were burning in Columbus?
Ohio?
Honestly, here last week, I were out in the sun for 15, 20 minutes tops, and it were like direct sunlight, and I were throwing up because of the heat. Like, it just doesn't agree with me. I sleep on I sleep with a window open, and I can not ever get a proper night's sleep unless it's raining and absolutely freezing cold. And I think that probably stems back to that, like most of my childhood, because I lived with my nan as a child, never lived with my mum or dad. And I spent most of the 6-week holidays that we got. I mean, I think you guys get a few months off, but we got 6 weeks, and I'd spend most of it camping out. And then into my adult life, obviously, as I were transitioning, I were homeless for a period of time, and then moved into sleeping on my friend's sofa in the most uncomfortable positions ever. And now I've got a nice, comfortable place to stay. It's just too warm. I mean, I'm burning up now.
That's funny how life is, right?
Yeah, I know it's just kicking me whilst I'm up.
But
Yeah.
I was gonna tell you. So hold up. So you're in where's the city that you're right now residing in?
I'm in Horbury right now, Dewsbury.
Okay, so compared to your time that you spent here in Miami, in terms of one of the things that I think people tend to be surprised at when they come here are the females and the males in terms of like
We got some
attractiveness.
good-looking males here too, bro.
We have like a nice span of that. Where would you say you would place the females in your city, like numerically? Where would you put them as being? Like, for example, they're an average of 7s, right? They're an average of 6s. Over here, I think the average is 10.
Yeah, and that's like on a bad day.
Yeah, so where would you put the average of females in your city?
Well, it's difficult because when I came into Miami, I fit right in, right? That was the first. No,
Is that here with the fuck? You got the tats? You look like a SoundCloud rapper.
Do you know what? I get asked all the time. Do you know? So a few people have said to me, "Oh, that guy, he's that rapper that we've seen." I've had that a few times.
Yeah.
So it must. But no, honestly, it's really difficult because I found that people tend to be when they, and this is going to sound like I'm making a comment about a blanket comment. I'm not. I found that when people tend to be body focused and they go to the gym a lot more, they tend to be a lot less, because the time they spend shaping their body, they tend to be a lot less mentally focused, and vice versa, right?
I'm very mentally focused.
You'd never be able to tell, Danny.
Yeah. Because you're fat.
Right, so for me, I suppose it depends what you're looking for, because the problem is that in England, and I don't know if this is the same there, you find a really good-looking girl, and I mean to the point where you look at them and go, she's cliche good-looking, right? And most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, all they want to talk about is I need to look good for this photograph, or I need to keep up with my hair, I need to do this. And you know what? Sometimes I just think I like to be free and easy. I don't want anybody who's thinking about their own appearance that much is clearly thinking about yours as well, right? And when I wake up in the morning, I might want to get out of bed and just go, look, my fucking hair's my hair, and I might want to go outside and fix my cars and throw on jeans and my hands. Sometimes, I mean, if you look at my hand, I've got silicone on my hand now from earlier on when you were doing the sound check. I was spraying something with black spray paint. I tried to get it off, and I don't want to be judged like that. I just want to be able to get up and I want to just be myself and not have to think about the way that I look. So the honest answer is that I think that there's an equal mix. I think it's 7 and 7 both split, and I hope that's not an easy out. It's just for the time that I spend, that I like to. If I found a girl that were visually appealing and mentally appealing simultaneously, that'd be a solid 10 for me.
That's the problem with Miami. It's fake it till you make it. That's the mentality here. Everyone's kind of that fake sort of outward. On Instagram, they're one way, and then you see them in person, you're like, wow, you look fucking nothing.
You want some caviar?
That's not what I meant. I meant like appearance.
I know.
But
fake it till you make it.
But that's my. And I'm not saying that that's the blanket, because invariably there's going to be anomalies within that range of people. If I spend all my time focusing on music, if you were to ask me about something outside of music, the chances are that I won't know very much about it based on the fact that I spent my time focusing on that. It's just an observation, not a blanket statement. But I think it's very difficult because, like I say, I mean, when you're in Miami, I didn't see that many women. I spent most of my time looking at fucking G.
Yeah, that's a
Christian. You know what I mean?
That's fucking gross.
So, yeah, that's it. So I spent most of my time with that. I tell you a funny story about Brad Christian. It were hilarious. And you came to the penthouse.
Yeah, which is we all made beautiful love together.
But Brad's an absolute fucking nut job. I love him to pieces, but he has this thing about like retaining his brain power, so he doesn't like Wi-Fi or anything like that when he sleeps because he don't want it affecting his thoughts.
That's so smart. I'm gonna start shutting off my Wi-Fi.
No, like the guy. But listen, I know it sounds silly, and it's but the guy's clearly a genius. I mean, so there might be some truth to it. I mean, look what he's built, the empire that he's built. So when he went to sleep in the penthouse, he turned all the Wi-Fi off, but neglected to remember that the AC were controlled by the Wi-Fi. So he woke up and flooded the penthouse.
That's fucked. Wow.
Literally. But so I don't know. I spent my time looking at them.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you, I've always had this running sort of bit, like, because Illusionist was one of the first magic companies that got me into magic, because they were really pushing after David Blaine got popular. They were really pushing that idea of everyone towards the street magic thing. Danny right now is counting $100 bills because we have a running joke.
Oh, thank you for the envelope, by the way.
Yeah,
Peter. Thank you.
Okay. The running joke is that what Illusionist is paying you? That's your joke?
Yes, that's the joke.
Okay. All right. I feel like you had to explain that before you just count money.
Peter knows.
Okay. All right. I've always...
because they're not paying me.
Yeah. I think I tell you, I've always had this running bit with Brad Christian because the whole eyeliner and the whole ninja series, and I've always found just him as a magical figure to be just a hysterical person. So it's funny that you have this insight from pretty much working for him. I mean, that's something I want to ask you about because you. I
work with Brad, not for Brad.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I said something that was going to result in me getting murdered by a Brad Christian shaped ninja.
I don't actually work for Illusionist, which is something that people.
Okay.
So basically, I own a company in England. I own a production company in England, and I actually, it's strange. Illusionist are my client, not the other way around.
Okay. So that's fairly interesting.
So basically I don't. So whilst I'm part of Team E and whilst I am closely work with them, and this is what made me laugh about people saying that I'd sold out and made a quick buck on the Stark watch. I didn't get paid for it. I get paid a retainer by the company per year, not per product. I don't have to give anything to Illusionist.
Yeah.
I can just sit there and do nothing as long as I'm telling them this is good, this is bad. I'm a consultant for the company.
That's interesting. So I had no idea that was the actual relationship that you guys had.
Nobody does that. The position, my position there is not to release material. I gift that material to the company. Well, and that's because I wanted somebody who can make my visions come true, and they do. They really do that.
That's what I was going to tell you. That I feel like they have definitely the wherewithal in the magic industry to be able to kind of like, if you have an idea for example, that watch, or if you have an idea for something, they actually can produce it. Whereas you as an individual, I feel like you would have a slightly harder time doing that. And also, I don't think you would have an issue in the marketing sense, but you would definitely have an issue in the production sense. I think.
A lot of
They're
cost. Yeah.
Well, they're amazing. Like I couldn't fault them in any way in that form. If if you have a good idea, they can make anything happen. I was just on with Jen, which is we have a line manager, and what she does is you take anything to her. You could take a drawing to her, like something made out of piano keys that's come off the back of a bottle that's stuck up the arse of a hobo, and she'd be able to get it made for you and have it delivered to your door from America within 24 hours. I mean, the woman is amazing. So I struggled a lot. Like when I ran my own company solo and I wasn't partners with Illusionist, I wasn't working with them. What happened was, I was doing everything. I was planning the production, I was planning the shoots, I was planning what were going to be filmed, I was creating the material, I was sourcing the buyers, I was sourcing the people that'd create it, I was finding connections, trying to deal with postage, trying to deal with sending packages out, admin, and
It's a lot of
everything else.
work.
And they've taken all that away.
Yeah.
They've taken all that away, and now I don't.
The
I don't
artist
need
gets to be the artist while you you have someone else helping you out with the rest, which is very important if you want to be successful.
But what do you?
Yeah. Go on.
No, I was just gonna say, what in that sense, what are you compromising? What are you giving up in that sense?
Do you know what? Honestly, it feels like I don't give anything up. I'm gaining. Somebody said to me I was selling out, and I'd rather think of it as buying in.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the dumbest shit. I feel like when somebody says, "Oh, you're selling out," you're joining this, like you're trying to make money at the end of the day. Everyone's out here trying to do the same thing, trying to feed themselves and their families, and it doesn't make sense for somebody to say, "Oh, you sold out," because now you're working for a company that's going to increase your value. Are you on camera right now, Daniel?
Huh?
Okay.
Oh, I am. Sorry.
Okay.
When anybody says that, it's usually because A, they have an axe to grind with the company, B, they're jealous about your position in life, or C, they think, shit, I wish I'd have thought of that first. Mm-hmm. And that's mostly, do you know what I mean? And I'm really not bothered. I always just say and think of one thing whenever I look at all this. It's, I don't care what anybody thinks, as long as I know that when I get to the end of my career that I did it my way and nobody else's. Mm-hmm. If I get nowhere, I get nowhere. If I go somewhere, I go somewhere.
You tried.
And that's that. Pardon?
You tried. At least you tried, right? So if you fail, you just, at least you got to the point where you could fail, which a lot of people don't even get to that point.
And that's it. And I think that people think that it bothers me when they say things about me and whatever else. It doesn't. What bothers me is the fact that they don't open up a public forum for me to be able to reply. Mm-hmm. That's the bit that pisses me off, because
we call those pussies over here in Miami.
I'd love nothing more than a backwards and forwards with somebody. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But most of the time, people won't come out and they do it anonymously. And the reason they do it anonymously is because they know they'll be shot down within the first 20 seconds of doing it. There's nothing worse than imagine a series of you're in the audience of a comedian. The best bits are where the hecklers heckle the comedian, then the comedian has a backwards and forwards. Mm-hmm. Please, bring yourself out into the open and do it with me. I'm not bothered. Say what you want. You could never offend me.
So I mean,
just don't do it behind a veil of anonymity.
No, you're right. You're right. And I was going to mention that you recently had that based on the stack watch, and you had a lot of I would say some criticism on the what it is, and I always think that Illusionist is brilliant when it comes to their products and when it comes to that, but I do think that their marketing is what gets a lot of criticism just based on the style. For example, even I was talking to Danny about this, the How to Read Minds kit. Wonderful kit, beautiful set, but the marketing was very geared towards which, by the way, believe it or not, there's an audience for that, but it was geared towards being the star of the party, or being the you're going to be able to talk to girls with this. And I've always kind of made fun of that, but it's there for a reason. And I think it's because of that they do get some flack, or most of their flack. But in the case of the stack watch, it's what we were talking about earlier, in the sense of, if it was maybe presented a little bit differently, people wouldn't be as uppity as to give it criticism. But that marketing of now you don't have to remember anything forever, I think that's what kind of...
Do you know what? I agree to a degree, and where I sort of draw the line on it is this, is that, okay, so imagine this was somebody, let's put it into a different context. Imagine this was somebody who desperately needed money, desperately needed the product to get off the ground, desperately needed a new livelihood. And they earned $330,000 in Kickstarter on a project that they thought up in their mind. Nobody'd have anything to say. It'd be like, go on, lad, you've turned your life around, you've done this, you've done that, you've done this. When a corporation does it, that people believe, oh, they don't need that amount of money, it becomes a problem. And so what happened in that is this. When I were at 20,000 on the Kickstarter, people were patting me on the back, right? 40,000 people going, I can't believe it's done 40,000 in 2 hours or whatever, an hour and a half. you know, like, and then pat on the back at 50,000, then 60,000. The people that patted me on the back at 20,000 were now saying, oh yeah, maybe it's shit, without even opening the box. And then at 80,000, 100,000 people started to turn. 200,000 people started taking it out on me. This is, you know, I had Richard Kaufman, who was a great guy, you know, a great performer, great creator, say, oh, this is the biggest travesty to happen to mentalism ever. And I thought, you know what, this is silly exposure. And I thought to myself, coming from the man that has the accolade for being the most prolific writer in Magic, how can you even comment that? You know what I mean? Like, and then even people that were friendly of mine, like, made fake accounts to be able to represent the thing that they were. And I just said, just fucking tell me you're bothered about it. Don't bother me. You know, the fact of the matter is this, and I'll tell you something that nobody knows. I joined this company as a partnership. I'm sat there. The last project had Daniel Madison, it had Chris Ramsey, it had Pete McKinnon on. 3 people. You look at how big Pete McKinnon is now. You look at how big Chris Ramsey is now. You look at how big Daniel Madison is now. And they were always big key players in the game. I come along and I've got to release a kit off my own back that's just me. And I've got to make sure that I'm equally as good as, or sell equal amount as, those people. Now, it's all right, you know, everybody complaining about how many sold or what the marketing was or anything else. In my head, I didn't care about any of that. All I thought is, you know, is this going to be embarrassing for me to know that I never lived up to those 3 powerhouses that released the How to Be a Magician box set? And when it sold more than that, and it sold more than double that, you know, I was there like, wow, you know, this is an achievement for me. Now, for anybody who thinks the marketing's bad, you know, I said on the threads, I'm very open and honest about my approach to everything. And I said, yeah, you're judging a 7-minute video and a 10-minute read. There's 7.5 hours of content on that box. Why don't you watch the content and then come back and look which outweighs which? Do you know what I mean? And I get, you know, it only takes 1 tree to make 1,000 matches. It only takes 1 match to burn 1,000 trees. I get it, right? But the content there is 7.5 hours. Let it offset itself. You know, watch the box set and then make your judgments. But anybody who says that the marketing's wrong or it didn't work, well, tell me one other Magic Kickstarter you've ever seen do $330,000 in a month. Do you know what I mean? There must be an audience for it. Same as the Stack Watch. You know, the Stack Watch is sold out within the first week, and then the second order sold out as well, and that's 2,000 watches gone in less than 2 weeks. You know, and then we have people asking for customized watches, and we have this, and so for everything that's said wrong about it, you know, to the audience that they are marketing to, that's they're selling, and to the people that are talking about it and posting memes about it, well, it's hard. Think about it this way. They're posting memes about it and they're saying all this shit about it, and I don't mind. I laugh. I sit there and laugh. But everybody knows my name now, and everybody knows the watch, and everybody knew the How to Read Minds box set because everybody were talking about it, regardless of whether you liked it or you didn't. It was free promotion for the company.
100%.
So if you hate the product without seeing it, you hate what I put on the download without seeing it, you hate what it does without seeing it, and you really want it to fail because you hate it that much, then just don't post about it, because then it don't promote itself, and the sales will be a lot less than they are. Right? So for every person that made a meme about it and posted a shit review or posted something without seeing it, there were 50 people that bought it. So I think they're really clever in knowing what sells and what, you know, how marketing is going to affect people. And the best thing for me is I sit there and go, you're claiming not to be a puppet, and you're claiming to be somebody that's smarter than the average bear, and you're going to buy into the hype. The problem is that the marketing were to get you to do that in the first place, so you are a puppet, and you are part of that vehicle, because they wanted you to do that to promote the product.
Very well said. Yeah.
I have nothing to do with the promotion of the products. I have nothing to do with the marketing. Listen, I produce an idea that I like. I shared with you an idea earlier on that I have with the Stack Watch.
They're fucking great.
You know, like, and this, it allows you to use a borrowed deck with a Stack Watch. A borrowed deck, and the audience stack the deck for you, and you end with this beautiful revelation on the back end, you know. And so the thing for me is this, is that talk shit about it, do what you want, because at the end of the day, all you're doing is you're lining the pockets of the people that you don't want to line the pockets of. I don't make a penny from it. I didn't make any money from the Stack Watch. You know, and I'm open. I said that in the live for Illusionists.
Yeah.
I give them an idea. I gifted them an idea. because I knew they'd be able to bring my dream to a reality. If they even made just one watch and sent it to me, that's enough for me.
That's what
I just wanted one myself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that's a really good strategy. Just say, hey, I have this great idea. I don't know if it's gonna work though, and then just have them make it this fucking, you know, prototype just for you. That's fucking tremendous. No, but you're 100% right, and that's the thing that I think comes with we're in a very headline culture now in society where people don't read into it. We just see the headline and we make an opinion and then we post, and that's a circle formula that is not going to lead to anything because you really don't have any experience with it. You're not seeing it from the perspective of having the product and then being able to talk about it. You're just reading a headline and then posting your opinion on that, and that just comes with, you know, social media.
That's what pissed me off.
Yeah.
Now, that's what annoyed me the most with the Stack watch, is that people thought, oh, what can I do with this watch? Oh, it must be shit. Well, that's because of your limitations of your own imagination. Tie my imagination with the same brush. Before the downloads were even short, or they were just the preliminary downloads, they're not even the finished ones. We can get out soon and we can go get the proper ones. People judging the product based on just what they saw of the prop and what they could imagine that it did or does.
Great point.
Instead of back and going, wait a second, maybe somebody's thought of ideas that I haven't thought of and I'll judge it based on that. And that's what annoyed me is, you know, is the fact that buy the download, watch the download, buy the watch, then make a comment on it, but constructively say what you don't like about it. You know, they were saying, some of the things, there's no motivation. You have to create an awkward moment in performance to justify the peak of the watch. Well, I'll tell you what, you show me a billet peak where you don't have to add a move in to look at the billet. Do you know what I mean? Like, if there's any routine that involves any type of mathematics you have to do in your head, show me a routine where you don't have to add a beat in to add that in. A Swami gimmick, that horrible question that everybody asks, why did you go for that number?
Yeah.
You know, it's a staple of mentalism since the dawn of time that you add this one sentence whilst you add it in there.
That's my favorite thing, when you're holding the thing with two hands, right? You do so. But why were you? Nobody in the history of history have ever held a piece of paper with two fucking hands, but every mentalist does.
And that's it. And so you know, the point there is this, is that you'll happily add these justifications into reading a marking on the back of a card. You'll happily add them into peaking a billet. You'll happily add them into Swami gimmicks and every other fucking effect on the planet. Yeah. But it becomes something that's obvious when it's a watch. And you know what? Just to answer the question that I just asked there, if you're ever going to do a Swami routine and you're performing a routine, there's a group of people, and you have all of this piece of card, you say, I want everybody to think of a number, and I'm going to read you all to see who I feel's got the number that I'm thinking of. So I'll think of a number, add 5 to yours, change yours. Yours is miles off, change yours. I think this is going to be you. What number are you thinking of? And they say 26. Now, instead of going, why did you go for 26?
Yeah. What number did you have?
Don't write anything. Go, do you know, it's strange. If I'd have picked anybody else, what number would you have gone for? And as soon as they're saying theirs, write it in there. Now swap hands and go, what about you? Take a look at that a second. What about you? Now you're not even holding it. You've cleaned up. The problem is you've directed the attention towards you when you're saying, why did you go for that number? They're looking here. Whereas everybody's looking there at the moment, you know, that really counts. And so deflect, you know, don't introvertly bring tension towards yourself. But these are the types of little tips that you can find on the How to Read Minds box set. And if you haven't got yourself one, you can find them over at illusionist.com.
Banger.
/ How to Read Minds.
Let me put that on the
chat. No, but you're right. And I think that comes, we were talking about it earlier, and I really do hate this, the stereotypical questions that you get asked, you know, are always based on methodology. They're always based on what's this, what's your favorite that. But it's these small little things that really do make the value. And I think in that kit you had, you know, times when you pretty much deviated and gave something up that I would have fucking charged God knows how much for. You were giving up just on a whim.
Dozens.
But what's interesting too is you're right on the sense of them seeing the watch. And when I first saw the watch, I was first thinking, what would I do with that? I wasn't necessarily thinking as to what it is that they're doing or what it is that Illusionist is selling it as. And you said this earlier with the invisible deck. You know, people are thinking of these objects how they're trained to think of it as magicians. But if you think about other things in different ways, you're going to come up with, you know, infinite amount of stuff. So from the watch, just using that as an example, God knows how much shit you could come up with that I'm sure, you know.
You had a week. When I advertised it, you had 1 week to think about it. I've had the idea for 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, what could I have come up with in 3 years?
Yeah.
And that's the point. That's it. Is I've had 3 years to play with this and tinker with it.
Yeah.
Everybody else who were coming in had less than a week.
Yeah, exactly that. And you don't have to buy it based on the what they're selling it as. I know that one of the piece of marketing was as is any card at any number, but that's just because, God forbid, that fucking trick happens to be a buzzword now. But you just, if you think on your own and you think as an individual, how would I use this? How would I personally use this? It's a tool. It becomes a tool that would be invaluable to anybody. But if it's...
Let me show you something whilst we're going off on this tangent.
Yeah.
If I were going to do any card at any number, I wouldn't use a watch, right? I'd do it fucking so cleanly and so perfectly that I wouldn't need to, right? And it's interesting that you squared it off because this is a perfect point. So I'm going to... So you can hear me, Danny?
Yes, sir.
So earlier on, Danny, you said to me, let's play like a prank on Pig Cake. So he told me he wanted to play a prank on you.
I didn't.
Can you tell?
Makes sense.
I did.
Can you tell him the prank that you wanted to play on me? You said, oh, you give me this deck of cards in Miami and you never got to show me the effect. Can we set something up to full Pig Cake?
Yeah,
yes or no?
That's correct.
And what were my exact response back to you?
You said, let's do it for real.
And could you... that was my response. Let's do it for real.
Legit. It was. Let's do it for real. Which kind of threw me. I was like, damn. I was hoping we could kind of like, But no, he said it straight up. Yeah.
Take my shirt off and I'll fight you.
Seriously, I said, let's do it because mostly, and for two reasons really. The reason I said let's do it for real is one, that I was sort of worried that maybe you were recording the call and then that'd get aired on the internet, and two, I like to do it for real. It's more fun, right?
Yeah.
So there's a few things that I asked for, and I'm not going to try to. If I leave anything out, Danny, please tell everybody that I left something out because this is important, right? Danny said, "Could you show me something?" And I said, "Yeah." So I said, "All you need to do when you come on the call is bring a deck of cards." Do you have a deck of cards?
I do. Let me get it.
Now, I asked Danny to take a brand new deck out of the box and shuffle it before he came on the call. Did you do that, or is it still in brand new deck order?
I shuffled it.
Do I know the order of that deck of cards?
No.
Do you know the order of that deck of cards?
No.
Definitely fucking not. With your shit memory.
Could you swear on your family's life, Danny, that I've not set anything up with you? I hadn't said to you, please think of this, please think of that. I hadn't asked you to write anything down, email me anything. In other words, I'm saying I've not pre-showed you. You're not a stooge. You don't know what's about to happen.
I can even show you how fresh the deck looks. It's a brand new deck.
Keep them in the box and give them to Big Cake. I'm going to show you how fair this can be, right? So promise on your life, Danny, that there's no prior setup. You genuinely, I haven't asked you to do anything for me.
Not at all.
So if I said to you right now to give me any number from 1 to 52, what number would you give me, Danny?
18.
Is that a fair choice?
Yeah, I think so.
How fair?
I could have chosen anything.
Did I ask you to write that number down?
Not at all. Oh, he can't. I forgot he can't see me. Sorry, not at all. No.
No, did I equivocate you in any way to get to that number? That's just the first number that popped into your head. There's no prior setup. I didn't ask you off camera to think of that number. That's genuinely the number that came into your head.
Correct.
Name a playing card for me.
Queen of Hearts.
And is that a fair choice?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so.
So the Burglass effect stipulates that somebody borrows a deck of cards, asks somebody to shuffle them. They shuffle them up, they think of a number, they think of a playing card, and somehow that playing cards end up being at that number. Now, Danny, if the 18th card were the Queen of Hearts, would that be impressive?
I would lose my shit.
Take them out of the box, Pig Cake.
I'm glad you're
If I'm
having
going to
me
do it, I'll use the fucking stack watch and deal them from the top, face up one at a time. Show us each card as they go by to the camera.
I'm showing it to this camera and yours here. So that's
Keep the cards in the camera for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 1, 2. Lift your hand up a little bit so we can see.
Yeah, like this.
Yep, that's 2. Keep going. 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9,
10.
10. Wait a second. Stop there. We've seen that's the 11th card, but have we seen the Queen of Hearts so far?
I don't think so.
No,
we haven't seen it. Okay.
No.
Keep going. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Stop there. Stop at 17. Drop that down. Hold the deck up. Bring the deck up to your eye line.
Mm-hmm.
Don't move the deck for a second.
Okay.
Think about this. I asked Danny to take a brand new deck of cards and shuffle them off camera. He did that. I asked him if he knew the order of the deck. He said no. I asked him if I knew the order. He said no. I'd not prearranged a number with him. He had a free choice of any number. I asked him to think of any playing card. He had a free choice of any playing card. I didn't say to him, think of this card, pick this. No equivocate. Genuinely, off the top of your head, they were your choices, Danny.
What?
They were your choices.
Yeah, it was my,
Right.
sorry.
I'll
It was
slap the
my
shit out of you.
Yes, I'm still unfocused. I'm sorry.
If that 18th card with the Queen of Hearts big cake, would that be cool?
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I'd feel like I want to make love to the deck.
Let's have a look at it. Let's see. And
I'm hot right now, dude. I feel like I'm sweating.
Oh, yeah, that's normal. That's your normal.
and everybody watching it's going to somehow think that maybe Danny's in on it to play a prank on you, but I'm sure he'll tell you that he's not.
He legit said it. I mean, I wanted to prank you. He legit said, let's do it for real. I was like, damn, that's kind of ballsy. Yeah,
That's
bro.
okay.
God damn it.
I have a whole tirade on any card, any number. By the way, Peter, I don't know if you're.
It's one of the fucking shittest effects ever, but it's a puzzle.
It is.
And that's why magicians love it so much, and that's why like a lot of people are obsessed with Rubik's cubes or jigsaw puzzles. It becomes one of those puzzles, and once you can figure out how to make it happen like that, you don't need a watch. The watch is for me to create other routines and other miracles. And I know that Big Cake's are looking at Danny as if to say, "Is this set up you bastard?" Genuinely.
I have a bat underneath the table here, just ready to intimidate.
Yeah, no, I'm sure when you come off camera, he'll tell you that it's not. It genuinely is what it appears to be. And when you see it on the other interviews that I've done, that's exactly how it looks.
Yeah. I saw you had a stream the other day with Illusionist where you were killing people. Like just people were jumping in, randomly, and you still murdered a lot of people. But now, okay. So let me ask you this: you said earlier it's a shit effect, right? It's a shit effect. Now, the way you present it, and the way that I've seen you personally present it, it's very to them. Like it's very catered towards the individual and less of a coincidence. More of I'm going to give you the ability to find the card. At least that's what I got when you were down here. Right, you gave them the ability.
Well, that's just because that's my method. So that you had to fit that plot. Do you know what? I don't do it. I don't perform any card, any number for lay people. It's something I don't perform for them. If I were going to use the watch, I'd use it for something else. I always try to. Magicians are inherently backwards. And let me give you like a couple of examples, then segue back onto this. And I've said it before. If you watch the Illusionist live, I talked about the Omni deck. Magicians bring out a deck of cards. So they have this deck of cards. They then say, pick a card. So they pick a card. And now they make the rest of the deck disappear to a glass block with a playing card, right? And then what they do is they go, how amazing was that? And then they bring a deck of cards back out of the pocket and do something else.
Yeah.
Right? Or they close their show with something that says shit as an Omni deck. I don't feel it's a powerful enough effect to close. But when you think about it in reverse and you think about the logic of using it in reverse, it becomes much more interesting. Imagine I talked about how different people can see things differently because they look at the world through a different lens. So imagine I said to you, what's your favorite playing card? I write it down and I'm holding this piece of card. And I say, all you need to do is look at the world through a different lens to see it as something different. And you take this block and you put it on top of it. And now when you wave your hand over it, the card underneath, the billet underneath the block changes to a card. So there's your first hit. And then you pull it out and you say, can you hold on to that block for a second? Now, obviously, when we're doing this, we've got one card. We're still 51 cards short of being able to actually show you something amazing. So we need a deck of cards. And then you just slowly look to the side and this block's turned into a deck of cards now. You get your second reaction, then you take them back and instantly move into your card routines using the deck that's there. It's a much more interesting approach, right? And it's the same as Out of This World. The problem with Out of This World is if you've ever performed Out of This World, you get to the end of it and somebody always says, even if you say, I'm going to give you the power to do this, you're going to deal it down, you're going to use your intuition. You get to the back end and they go, how did you do that? And if they're having to ask that question, then they never believed in the plot that you were sharing with them, right?
Very true.
And so I always said, I always get asked this one question: could I go into a casino and be able to remember the order of loads of different decks of cards to win money? And the answer is no. I wish I were that great. But what I can do is I can manipulate the dealer to deal the cards that I want. Prove it. So now when they take their deck, they're set up for my Out of This World. I say, I'm going to make you get every single one of these wrong, all the way down. So now when they're trying to deal reds, and I know that the blacks are the top half of the deck, and they start to deal, I stop and go, let's see how you did. And I turn them around, there's 5 black cards there.
Yeah.
And I go, you see, no matter how much you try to get this right, I'm making you get it wrong. Now, there's an inherent extra power there. One is the fact that somehow all these cards are sorting themselves out into these 2 piles. But 2, somehow you're manipulating them to deal the cards into the exact piles, and it fits closely with the plot that you say that you're doing, right? Now, use Gerard's method, which is a great thing in the middle, which I'm not going to explain. You can, in the middle, then say, or Alan Zing's, you can say, I'll even let you get them right. Tell me when you want to get them right. Now? And now they go down the rest of the cards, and you let them get them right. You know, when it comes to the back end now, and you come to your proof, if they turn around and go, how the hell did you do that? At least they're buying into the fact that it were you that did it.
Yeah, very good point.
And that's the same with any card at any number. So any card at any number is one of those effects that it's a puzzle. And so, you know, I don't think that I try to find a real world relevance to everything that I'm performing so that people can grab it. If it's a pin code revelation, instead of going, give me your phone, let me see if I can unlock it. If I get a second with somebody before the show, what I'll say to them is, I'll say, later on at any point, I want you to challenge me. I want you to tell me that you've locked yourself out of your phone and say, go on then, if you're that good, get me back in. And I do the work then if I can, right? So now I'm mid-performance, close up, and somebody says, go on then, you smart ass, I've locked myself out of my phone, can you get back in? And I say, well, you know what? You know the code, your subconscious brain knows it because you've punched it in a number of times, it's just your conscious brain's forgotten it. So all I need to do is create a bridge between the 2. So I'm going to try to read your subconscious brain to do this. And now when I open it, everybody else goes away and goes, you know what, this person were locked out of the phone at a gig and went, go on, then get me into it. And somehow he magically or managed to get me into it. There's a real world reason why I'm opening the phone. And it's positive because I'm helping somebody out in the moment they need me to help them out, right?
I love that too, that you're orchestrating these moments, you know, you're really in control, but you seem like...
I'm trying to do that all the time. So there's unexpected moments that pop up and they segue into themselves naturally, right? And that's the thing. And so any card at any number is a really difficult thing to get people to. I mean, there's no real world thing that you can do to with a dealer in the out of this world. It sort of makes sense. It's a bit far-fetched, but it sort of makes sense. With a phone and somebody's forgot their code, it sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
But any card there's no real world premise that you can give it to sort of tie it to. So with magicians, the only reason that I do it is because I've come up with a series of clean versions like that one that you just saw. And to them, they go, in their heads, they go, there's only 2 explanations. One explanation is this guy's fucking done this for real, or 2, he set something up with Danny. And I love the fact that people are going to leave this interview and go, he set something up with Danny, because it's just a testament to how strong the actual method that's going on is.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best part. But
I'm blown.
That's funny. Well, you're okay.
It's a compliment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's it. So any card at any number is good for magicians. And a long time ago, I realized that it made my interviews that I were doing live get more views.
Yeah.
So I'd look at Full Circle Magic, which were the group that were popular at the time, and other magicians would have like 100 views or 68 views, and then mine would have like 3,000. You know what I mean? And I'd be like, it's because everybody's marveling over the fact that I perform this any card at any number.
I honestly hate it for that reason. I really do. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love thinking of different methods and different variations, but I hate the kind of accolade that magicians have given it just because you said it earlier, it's a puzzle. And it's a puzzle that they're trying to solve that they have no idea. And in my experience, magicians tend to be very method-driven individuals. So they want the best method for this. And really, sometimes they're not satisfied with the method that you might have, because you might have a wonderful method for you, that you have this that works tremendously and it's very clean, but they might hate it because it doesn't suit their needs. It doesn't satisfy their criteria for, I want something that I could do, with this sort of set. And they're not willing to compromise. But let me tell you, it's a good marketing. It's a good marketing.
Listen, everything that everybody does in every one of my performances is something that I want them to do without knowing that I want them to do it. So, for example, Danny choosing 18, even though he had a completely free choice, I exactly wanted Danny to do that. Danny choosing the Queen of Hearts is exactly what I wanted to do when Danny did it, shuffling the deck and everything. I've not left anything out of the explanation that I give you. And you could talk to Danny and he'll tell you the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But you want
Peter Turner to me, bro.
Danny.
Hey, Peter.
Oh, Jesus.
I hear the same. I hear our voices the same.
Yeah. Okay.
But do you know what the thing with magicians is? is even if they start to unravel one part, do you see this that's sat behind me on this chair here that's been sat there since the start?
Oh, motherfucker.
Right? This little thing that's been sat here since we began, and I'll do this at fingertips so that you can see it. It's proof in concept that every single person, and I'll try to show you both sides as I open this, every single person that I get on these calls, whether they're asking me, all dance to the beat of one tune. No thumb tips, just this. I'm going to try not to drop it. I don't know if you can read that, but it says, I will influence you to pick the Queen of Hearts and the number 18, right? And that's when it becomes a little bit more of a puzzle, because every single thing that everybody does, right from start to finish, is completely orchestrated to
God damn it.
script. And that's it, right? And that's it. It's just there to screw with them, right? And that's the fun that I have. And I try to think to myself, look, you know, this is this, and this is what I can take advantage of here, and this is what I can take advantage of there, and this little bit I can pull there. And if you play this back, you'll see that was sat there from the start. You probably never noticed it, but it was sat there right from the beginning. Right from the beginning.
God damn. I'm crying, dude.
Yeah.
But I love little things like that, and for magicians, that's a great moment. And you know, for lay people, they probably won't give a toss. They'll be like, oh yeah, playing card wrote a number, so what? And that's why I don't perform it for them.
Yeah.
Is he all right?
No, you're right, and I've noticed that tremendously. That magicians have, I mean, it's obvious to say, but magicians have different qualifications for what they find as like mind blowing, and to them, it's boring shit like in any card at any number. Whereas you show that to a layperson, and the most even lay people have. I like to say that lay people are retarded, but honestly, they have more. They have more intelligence that we give them credit for. So if you have somebody name a card and another person name a number, it's not going to be a great effect for them. It's just going to be a coincidence. And, they're even able to process that as lay people, somebody that don't see this on a regular basis.
That's it. And the point is this, is that how is it benefiting their life? That's what I always say. So my question is this, is when somebody leaves one of your shows or when somebody leaves one of your performances, you want them to think that you're the fucking most mind-blowing person on the planet, right? Oh, this guy could win the lottery if he wants. This guy could get any girl in any bar that he wants. This guy can look at me and tell me all my bank card details and steal me and bank card fraud me. This guy can unlock any phone on the planet. This guy can walk into a car sales dealership and walk out of a brand new car for less than $1,000. Do you know what I mean? And you let them make up their own stories inside the head. And you do all that by turning the effects that you do into real world things that can take it away and go, if I ever got locked out of my phone, wouldn't it be great if I had a skill like that? Or wouldn't it be great to be able to get into my girlfriend's phone if this? Or wouldn't it be amazing to know if somebody's lying to me in business? And if you can think of all the ways that people actually use this in their everyday life and then frame your routines around that, all of a sudden everybody leaves wanting to know more about it because they're like, fuck, this could benefit me, right? And that's it. And so try to find routines that do that. Any card at any number only benefits magicians because it does one thing. In our life, there's puzzles that exist. In our world, there's puzzles that exist that don't exist in the world of lay people. And any card at any number is one of those puzzles. And so what happens is when I'm performing it to magicians, it either displays the puzzle that they've not managed to figure out, or if they figure out the method, it manages to give them a solution to something that they've been puzzling over for years. So it has a real world quality to them. And that's it. So, who's calling me? Laura, let's answer it. 1 second.
Yeah.
Let's see what she says.
When she sees this mic.
I'm mid-live interview. Do you want to say hello, Laura, to everybody at home?
Oh, shit. That's pretty funny.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, guys. Sorry.
Oh, no,
It's
this
all right, she's
camera.
ringing.
This camera. She could see this one, right?
I'll call you after I've finished.
All right, speak to you then.
Take care.
Have fun.
Bye.
guys.
She's a character.
Yeah. No, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I think magicians kind of they build themselves up and they have all these expectations. But really, I don't know if you have the same sentiment, but I dislike magicians heavily. I don't know if you're in the same sort of boat, just because they almost predictable in that sense.
Do you know what? The honesty is that I try. My thing is, this is a really silly thing, is I have a dislike for. So I become friends with magicians, But I've become friends with magicians, and when we talk about stuff, we barely talk about magic. You know, so we end up talking about things outside of magic. That's and the magic's only the way that we met each other, right? And we sort of leave that at the door. And I don't hate magicians, but what I hate is this, and I'm guilty of it myself, so I can't say anything. I can't really complain about it, and it's something I need to work on myself. Is that when I meet somebody for the first time, I don't know what somebody else wants to talk about, and magic seems to be an easy way to sort of bridge that gap for the first meeting. But outside of that first meeting, and after a couple of meetings, you know, my friends come around now and we don't chat about that. We just talk about other stuff. We're like, oh, what's been going on with this? What's going on with this? We share a couple of conspiracies. We make a couple of predictions that are not magic or mentalism related, they're world related, you know, and we just talk about things outside, you know, oh, how are you getting on? How's your auntie Pam? How's this? Or a tit still touching her knees? You know what I mean? We have jokes outside of that, and so I think if it wasn't for the magic, I can't sort of dismiss magicians entirely, because a lot of my friends have come from that world.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's almost like a sieve that I've found to sieve through it some of the most strange characters you'll ever meet. You know, my friend Mark, he's a magician. He's one of the smartest guys you'll ever meet on the planet, and the guy's like started cycling, and like he started cycling from the bottom end of the country to the top end of the country, you know, and the guy's just fucking nut job.
Yeah.
But he's an ex-pilot that used to fly a sheik's falcon like a bird of prey backwards and forwards.
That's
Do you know
fucking
what I
nuts.
mean? Well, man, there's so many weird stories. You know, I have friends that, you know, I won't even get into half of it, but I've got friends that do so many crazy things or have done crazy things outside of magic, that the magic's just been a tool to help us relate to each other. But I don't really hate anybody. I'm probably too soft to hate people.
Yeah. Well, I think that's yeah, you're right in that sense. It definitely we're all as unfortunate as I hate to describe myself as a magician. I'm a magician for a reason. You know, we're all like-minded. We all have similar thought processes, and because of that, we tend to gravitate towards each other. But at the same time, you also made a great point in that whenever you do meet with magicians, you don't talk about magic. You don't talk about mentalism. You talk about life, and it just adds to my point of magicians and mentalists essentially need to learn to become people first. And I think once they do that, they're going to find that their mentalism and their magic is going to improve exponentially just on that basis alone. So it's not necessarily a method-driven sort of ideology.
No, I was saying the same thing. You summed up what I said in an hour in a sentence. You're right.
Yeah.
Is find the personal things that people, and then change your magic to fit that, not the other way around.
Yeah, but it's what we were talking about yesterday about the frustration of all these questions, because, you know, somebody said a long time ago, there's no stupid questions. But I think that was a stupid person trying to essentially cover up for the fact that, you know, there are stupid questions. And I think when it comes to magic and mentalism, too many people are method driven, and they're driven by methods. They're not driven by effects. They're not driven by what the person is going to walk away thinking or saying. And all, you know, it tends to be, it works great for you. It works great for me, because at the end of the day, we can market towards these people, you know, we could have, you know, a living essentially. But I think it really defeats the point of what we have and the ability that we have that's different from other people in mentalism and magic.
Well, it stems outside of that. There's so many skill sets that we have that we don't even realize that we've got, you know, like I'm just going to plug my Mac in, it's going to die. We have so many, there's so many skill sets that we've got that branch out into so many other areas of life. One thing I've learned massively is patience, you know, from sitting down and reading and studying mentalism. Like when I want to draw, it's enabled me to be able to sit and precisely draw what I want to draw. It's helped me out in my music. It's helped me in other ways. And it's not even about the performance or the trick or the method. It's just learning to take what you've learned as a skill there and apply it to other areas of your life. And you find that those areas of your life flourish often more than the magic and mentalism. But you're right. I think that learn to be a person, and then learn to take what skills you learn as a mentalist and magician, integrate that into being a person, and then your effects and everything else will grow because of it.
Well, I mean, also in that sense, do you think that could also lead to an inflated ego? Because I do think that an issue that I see from a lot of mentalists and magicians is that they assume that their shits don't smell, and they walk around thinking that they know more than they actually do.
Well, I laughed earlier on. I was laughing because I didn't know how to share a story on Instagram, right? I'm really bad with technology.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn how to do it, and I shared your story, and I was watching it and I was laughing. And I noticed that one of you, I don't know who it was, posted that you got the world's greatest mentalist on your show, and I just sat there thinking, fucking hell, these are either a pair of idiots or they're just doing this type of shit out of the show.
Yeah.
Because I won't even consider myself in the ballpark of being remotely good. I talk about it because I was given a platform and there were a lot of people that wanted to listen. But I've always said, my career is. Have you seen the scene between Buzz Lightyear and Woody where they're arguing whether Buzz can fly?
Yeah.
And Buzz sort of jumps off the bed and hits the ball, goes round the loop, and then goes round the chain on the ceiling and comes back. And Woody says, "That's not flying; it's falling with style." That's my career. That's my career in a nutshell.
That's right.
That's fantastic.
I just bungle my way through shit and hope that it's all right. But I'm honest about that, and I don't mind. And I don't expect to be heard as some voice of opinion, some voice of authority. If you want to listen and take my advice, take it. If you don't, leave it. I'm fine with that. Do you know what I mean? I don't take every piece of advice that I get. You might get one thing that you really love and another thing that you really hate, and that's fine as well. So I think that people do get an inflated sense of ego, and they've got to remember that their accolades in life are being remembered because they can piss about with pasteboards.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then when you think about that, there's people out there that have got. I mean, let's imagine that Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid were a real person. That'd be an accolade to have, and nobody even knows about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are actual people like that. Do you know what I mean? And so if the only thing that you're known for is making a card appear at a number,
You're really what you're providing,
Yeah, that's it. So I don't, first and foremost, I'm a person, and I still have thoughts and feelings, and I bleed like everybody else. I laugh, I cry like everybody else, and that's it. And I don't expect to be remembered for anything. I don't, all of this has been great because going from living on the streets and living on a fat man's sofa and struggling to like make a living. I remember stealing milk from the supermarket when my son was born so that I could give him, just the food that he needed and stuff like that. And going to being able to, he rings me up and he's like, "Dad, can we build a gaming computer? Can we build a gaming PC?" And I say, "Yeah, sure. You tell me what we need and I'll find somebody that knows how to do it." And to be able to afford that opportunity to do that based off the back of this, I see it in my head as not something to benefit me or something to benefit what I need from life. It's something that affords me the life to be able to give my son the opportunities that I never had. So in essence, I'm really thankful for it, and I'm really thankful for everybody who does follow me and does listen to me. But without you guys, there'd be no me. So I'm not egotistical enough to think, that it's me that's doing it, because you guys are the ones that are sat on the bus and I'm just the driver. That's it, right?
Yeah, I think you're selling yourself way too short here. But you're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I think if people took the time to appreciate, the journey and where it is that they've gotten, instead of finding things to complain about, they would, we'd be better off. We'd be fucking way better off as a society.
And that's it. And I've got friends that are egotistical. I have friends that are so egotistical that if you told them that somebody else's ego were bigger, they'd argue the fact that theirs is bigger than theirs, right? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I've got friends like that, and I don't mind. I take those people for who they are, and I love them for who they are, and I accept the fact that they have an ego, and I just try to stay humble. There is times where I have, and I admit it, I've pulled rank and I've said, "Look, I've fucking done this longer than you." You know what I mean? And I understand this more than you understand it. I've been there. Yeah. And I have had to say that before in the past. But I'd expect somebody who'd been there longer than me, had experienced things, to say that to me. So it's reciprocal. It's reciprocal. I hope is that I don't come across as ego-driven, because I'm just a guy. You know what I mean? And that's it. Well,
yeah, that's the part that I find kind of funny, that at the end of the day, what we're doing, it does matter to certain people. It does matter to you. It does matter to me. But, at the end of the day, we're doing something that is deviant from the norm, and that we're claiming abilities that aren't really part of this, universe in actuality. But to develop an ego from that, it's really ridiculous, because what you have to remind yourself at the end of the day is essentially what you're doing is lie. It's a farce. We're presenting a scenario that can't technically exist, but we're giving the illusion that it exists. So to develop an ego from that, especially from what I've seen, in person and online, it's like, what are you doing, dude? You're a fucking magician. Like, sit down,
And that's, I think, but that extends outside of that. I think no matter what that person were doing, they were probably going to already be the same. I mean, the worst ones are the ones where, and I've seen it, you know, I mean, on my journey up, I've been around other people, and you know what tends to happen is that people who keep moving up and keep growing are the ones that keep moving forward and they keep going, and then others fall back or fall short or lose interest or whatever else. But then along those people that are moving up, and what I mean by moving up is that people get to know them a bit more, or they'll be offered a slight bit more to do a lecture or whatever, right? Those people then that started and they have no ego whatsoever, like none. These people are the coolest people on the planet. You'll talk to them and the nicest people ever. And then when they hit that point where they feel, oh, I'm charging X amount of money to do a lecture now, or somebody's just paid me £1,000 for one of my books, you know, they get to that point then when they start to turn into a fucking dick. and you know, there's been a few times, where I've said, fucking rein yourself back in, man.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, on another you to pull yourself together because you're acting like a fucking knob. And I've had to say that to a couple of my friends, you know, like, and because I think that it goes to the head, the fact that now people are listening and they have this platform. But the funny thing is, and I've seen this as well, is that the way that they talk to other people and the way that they act with other people, as soon as they pick up the phone and they're talking to you, they're a totally different person. So it makes me wonder whether a lot of that ego is just a bravado to continue to sell the character that it is that they're portraying to play. You know, so I don't know whether a lot of the time it is ego, but I don't think, you know, ego, if you're watching this and you're a young magician or you're an old magician and you're not known and you want to become known or you are known, you know.
I saw a Facebook post of that the other day, which is funny. On I don't know if you're part of this group, Magicians Only, on Facebook. It's let me tell you, if you're ever having a bad day and you want to pump for like a workout and you just want to read the cesspool, go there and you're going to find a lot of there was this one person that asked, it was like a younger individual, and he said, guys, I want to be famous. What are the steps that I need to do to be famous? And you had a lot of magicians saying, you know, be good. You know, essentially you had a lot of magicians rebutting in that sense. But I just found that a little bit interesting that this guy was specifically asking, how do I become famous, you know, as a famous magician? So kind of stupid.
I think that comes from, you know, insecurity though as well. I think these people think that that's something that they need in order to be successful. And I think as well that people think that there's so much money in magic that you're going to become a millionaire overnight, you know, and that's not true either. You know, that's another thing that makes me laugh. I mean, Devil in Disguise 1, that was selling, some people were paying £500-600 a copy for that DVD set. I got £300. Wow. £300 for the buyout, and I had to pay for my own train and hotel and food and drinks, and by the time I'd left the shoot I'd spent the money. You know, I didn't earn a penny from it. I got $500 from Freeform Mentalism, which were a #1 seller for about 18 weeks. You know, Murphy's sold Jinxed, and I got next to nothing for that, and that was Jinxed 1, and that sold out in 2 hours. Fastest selling mentalism product of all time for Murphy's. You know, and I think I didn't get very much money for that. I think I ended up about £4,000 or something, $4,000 for that. And by the time I'd ended up having to book a reflight from Greece to England, and then my train fares and everything else, and after paying taxes on it, I'm probably down to about £1,000. Do you know what I mean? And people think there's a massive amount of money on the way up, and there's not. You know, there's not. So you've got to decide what you want. Do you want the fame or do you want the money? If you want the money, you've got to then make certain compromises, and you've got to have a better business head and ask for what you want. Okay. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're famous. You know, I mean, I'm not going to name any names, but I know mentalists that are not well known in the mentalism world, but they're charging £5,000 to say hello on a stage. I know people, you know, that are charging £5,000 to say hello in a lecture, and they're well known, but then nobody knows who they are in the real world. So you've got to decide what it is that you want. Do you want to be famous to everybody else out there that's watching, the audience at home, or do you want to be famous in the magic community, which is a totally different kettle of fish? Yeah, that's a very good point. You know, you've got to be. I even listen, and I'm not above asking for advice. I think I even asked you the other day when we were chatting out, like you were saying, "Oh, I've seen your YouTube videos," and I said, "I know. I don't know. I'm just starting to get the wheels turning. I don't have the first clue about how to promote them."
Well, I wanted to ask you now that you mentioned that. So your YouTube, right? I asked you like, what's your end goal? I believe I think I asked you like, what's your goal? What are you trying to do with YouTube? Now you are obviously, I think you are the type of person that you're not necessarily in disagreement of, for example, showing or teaching methods on YouTube. At least from what I've seen so far, you're not one of these people that's against that, right?
So I think we had this discussion in Miami. So we had this talk in Miami. So on my channel, I don't put any methods. I don't talk. I mean, I might mention, like I mentioned a couple of things in here about the Swami thing, and that might be considered a method. It's more just a presentational angle. I really don't care what anybody else is doing. You know, I don't care. I'm not the council. I don't own, I don't own the methods. Would I be pissed off if somebody started and dedicated an entire YouTube channel to exposing everything that I'd done, and they were getting millions and millions of views? I look at it both ways and go, well, now millions of people know who I am. Yeah. And at the same time, I'd be like, right, these fuckers are taking what I've created, right? So I've been in two minds about it. But my thing is this, is that my aim with my YouTube, and you maybe be able to help me with this, is I made a 10-second introduction. Or 10, 15-second introduction. In the middle of it comes up my name, and I didn't know what to put. I don't want to be a mentalist. I don't want to be a teacher. I'm not as egotistical to think that I'm a life coach or anything like that. And so the title, the working title, is like adventurer or something like that. It's a bit tacky and cheesy. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a bit 80s Chippendale. So I'm like, I don't know what. Like my channel, all I want it to be about is this, and this is the truth. If you wrote a book about my life story, the ins and outs, and one day, if anybody wants to take me up on this, I could tell you stories that you wouldn't believe. The story of how I learned to drive, for example. I'll give you an insight into it. I'm bunking off school and I'm building minis at 15 years old in the drive of a friend of mine, right? And he used to let me reverse the car up the drive and back down. And I'd done that at my dad's house. I'd like reverse the car or whatever. And he said to me, do you want to come to Portsmouth? Now, bear in mind, Portsmouth is 600 miles from my house, through all the major cities in England from my old house. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, we're going to go look at a car, it'd be a bit of fun. So I convinced my brother to bunk off school with me. And so he drives 600 miles, it's like a 6-hour drive or whatever, more, down to the bottom of the country and then outside the country onto this little island that's at the right at the bottom end, just barely scraping England. And he's down there. He's like, oh, I really love it. My dad might lend me the money. So he rings his dad, and his dad's like, yeah. He's like, my dad won't pay for a tow truck, though. Would you be comfortable driving this car back? And this banged up car, his old one. I was like, well, I don't really know how to drive. He's like, I'll give you a 15-minute driving lesson in an industrial estate. Now, bear in mind, we drive stick. We don't really drive automatics in England. So it's all stick, clutch, and
manual.
The only way to drive.
Yeah, so he takes me into this industrial estate. I drive around for about 15 minutes, and he's like, do you think you've got it? I'm like, I don't know. And I drove 6.5 hours, 7 hours back over motorways, through the biggest cities, around the biggest packed roundabouts, through rush hour, having never driven, and I couldn't look at the mirrors at the same time. So I'm having to have my brother go, yeah, you're all right, and then pull over. And, it was just the wildest experience of life. And I've got hundreds and hundreds of those. And so my YouTube, I want to reflect that. I want to reflect. Now we're outside of COVID, the sorts of stuff that I do. Like I was so bored during lockdown, I built a Cobra, an AC Cobra from the chassis of a car.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I learned how to spray paint cars myself and do body work myself and fix body kits and build cars from nothing, from building adapters and machining fittings that don't exist and customizing like switch panels and learning the automotive electrics because I got bored. And that's the sort. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'll get an idea in my head, and whereas most people go, oh yeah, I'll try that, or I'll immerse myself in it and I'll do it. I got given a banjo. I can play any musical instrument on the planet. They give me a musical instrument and give me a day with it and come back, and it's like I played it for 10 years. And I've always been sort of that wired that way. So my YouTube channel, the aim is, I'm going to get up to some fucked up shit. I'm going to drive round Route 66. We have a Route 66 in England that's round Scotland and stuff, on my motorbike. And I'm going to take a little camping bag or whatever on the side of it, take some amazing astrophotography, eat at the shittiest restaurants, and cook food on a barbecue that's probably going to put itself out because it's pissing it down and the tent falls down in the middle of the night. And now I have to drive home soaking wet and come back 500, 600 miles. But join me for that journey. There's a waterfall here that's 60 foot. I'm going to stand on the top of it and I'm going to jump off of it. And I don't know if I'm going to hit the rocks at the bottom.
YOLO.
Do you know? Like, and that's the sort of stuff that I'll decide upon, or
Yeah.
you know, I'll see something on paper, and most people will go, "Oh, he's a fucking idiot, that lad." You know, my neighbours describe me as a character.
Yeah.
Because I'll just get an idea in my head and I'll just do it, and so that's what I wanted to record. You know, I don't know whether it's going to be tuition. I'm sharing some of the mentalism stuff. I don't know if it's going to be interactive experiments. I don't know if it's going to be following me on a motorbike. I don't know if it's going to be, oh, I've just crashed my car. Look what it looks like. What's it like to write off a £30,000 Mustang? This is exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
How pissed the dude that I run into? Say hello. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the thing with the channel, is I don't really know what's going to happen or where it's going to go, but I just want people to sort of follow me as I'm doing that stuff. And along the way, you might pick up on something you find hilarious. You might pick up on something you find stupid. I'm not, you know, I was wearing a cap that had an upside down cross on it because my hair were like frantic. And then I got commentary from religious groups saying that I were against God because I wore this upside down cross, and I'm sat there like, and I'd just given this discussion about picking your attire and thinking about what you're wearing on camera, and I'm wearing this cross that's upside down, and I get like a range of people battling me in the comments, and I were going to make a video on it because, you know, most of these fucking idiots are watching this don't understand that if you look on the back of the Pope's chair, there's an inverted cross to signify the death or the crucifixion of Saint Peter, who were hung upside down because he didn't believe that he were righteous enough to be hung the same way around that Jesus did. You know, so on the back of the Pope's chair, there's this inverted cross. You look at, like, for example, the symbol of a peace symbol. Well, that's an inverted cross, but then they've desecrated it by snapping the arches on it as well, right? And so symbolism can be taken any way, but they'd obviously taken offense by it. And so I want the YouTube channel to be stuff like that, an open forum for people to say things like that, and I'll make a video and I'll respond.
Yeah.
You know, and so you know, maybe the People's Channel or the Voice of the People or whatever, and you tell me what you want to see. Do you know? Do you want to see what it's? Do you want me to perform an interactive experiment on you now, and then sit there and you watch me down a bottle of whiskey on camera, and then give it 30 minutes to kick in, and I'll perform the same experiment to see how different it is performing drunk, and this really exemplifies the reason why you shouldn't perform whilst you're pissed.
Hey, let us know if you need help with that. We could definitely go 50-50 on that, you know? We'll just get shit-faced together.
Do you want me to go online and find people that are doing live mentalism shows and book them for a little private act for me and 3 other mentalists that are considered great mentalists, and we'll record it and you can watch it? Do you know what I mean? What do you want? What do you want to fucking see? Because that's the point, is that I've got so many of these cool ideas, and it's really just about trying to get it noticed so that there's more people saying what they would like to see, and whether it, you know, like, whether it's a silly suggestion or not, I'm up for, you know, I've pretty much got the means to do whatever I want. If somebody wants me to travel to America and do something funny in America, you know, I'll do it. Or do you want me to tour Europe? And I'll go around Europe and I'll have a look at the difference in card magic from France to Germany. Do you know what I mean? To Holland, to whatever, and compare it.
Yeah.
I just want to have some fun, and I think that the medium of recording it, I recorded my life for 3 years. You know, I might as well be showing people what's going on behind the scenes. And
I think that's great. I definitely think that is more, you know, at least in the sense of somebody that's watching it, you're giving a lot of value based on just experience alone. And I really hope that people understand that. You know, a lot of people are, again, as I mentioned earlier, method driven, but I think that's a wonderful idea because it really shows, you know, the man behind all these things.
Yeah, and I also hope that you make your way down to America again, man. We'd love to have you in Miami, you know, do some stuff over here.
We're coming back to Miami. We're going to come back to Miami. I just had a project greenlit. I can't say what it is, but
nice.
I know we're coming into New York, and we're definitely coming out to Miami in the near future. But if you have any suggestions, I mean, what would you call a channel like that? I don't want to be a vlogger or blogger.
You know, funny, I made a video the other day where I was bitching about magicians and what they call themselves, right? So one of the things that I mentioned was professional opportunist, right? And I had James Brown actually reach out to me and be like, dude, what the fuck is a pig cake?
You know, that's it. But at least, I mean, you've got this thing where your channel's a great channel because it's controversial. You had this mystery where you were the KFC bucket over your fucking face for however many, which were a big advertisement in America and England. Yeah. You know, they hid the KFC woman and the Virgin woman on the roller skates that hid with the bottles, and, you know, hiding your face for so long. It were such a good thing, and it were an angle that made people go, who is this fucking dude?
He's a short piece of shit.
You know, who is he? And I thought that was such a good angle. I mean, that's what mine lacks. Is it lacks direction. It's got all the drive in the world, but it lacks direction.
That's fine,
So
though.
if you
That's fine. That's totally good. I mean, the fact is that it's a journey, and you know, I think a lot of people are going to appreciate that. A lot of people are going to tune in just because you're an eccentric dude. You know, you have a lot to you. You have a lot of experiences that certainly people haven't had, and I think you project that very well. Even if you're talking about something mundane like a fucking trick, you know, I think that you have a very distinctive way of doing it that's definitely going to attract an audience. You don't have to resort to doing puzzles or showing card tricks, you know, to get people.
I just did twice.
Yeah, technically.
No, but I agree with Piggy there, bro. I mean, I think you have a great energy, you know, that comes off of you. And someone like me, I'm a fan, so I definitely want to see everything you just said. I would love to see that as a fan, man. You know.
Mm-hmm. I've got 1,000,001 things that I wanted to film for so long, and I'm really struggling to, like, as soon as I can find a word that sums it up or a sentence that sums it up. Do you know what I mean? Or like something that sums up, like you said, the journey.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What one word could I think of that says "join me on this journey" without saying "join me on this journey"?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
well, one of
like
the comments here is the Turner experience.
But do you see? I mean, no matter what I say, it's going to come across as being some sort of fucking. If I said adventure, it sounds tacky and like something like a kid's book. If you know. I don't want to say things like I can't even pronounce the word because I'm gaffing it up. A philanthropist, I can't even say it.
Philanthropist? Oh, full-on rapist. That's fine. Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I'm just stuck with that. So as soon as I get that, and then now we're out of COVID, you know, there's going to be a lot.
Yeah, it's over.
There's going to be a lot. It's slowly getting there.
Yeah. I forgot what you mentioned, something about demons or about dealing with religious people. I had a video that I made years ago called "The Truth About Demon Magicians." And there was this whole bit on Dynamo and this whole bit on, you know, how the idea that somebody's either so for example, they get a card from the middle of the deck to the top of the deck. People are willing to believe that you made some sort of pact with the devil. Generally, people believe, you know, based on the comments that I've gotten, that somehow you've made a pact with the devil. That, or they refuse to believe that really it's a second card from the deck. And they want to believe that somehow you made a deal, and through that you're able to show these things on TV. And I get comments every single.
Or you've been cursed
day.
recently. You got cursed.
I got cursed by somebody. Somebody told me that they put a curse on me and that I was going to dream of wolves because I made a shitty comment in response to them calling me a bitch on YouTube.
And so did you not go back to them? And like, I'd have gone back and I'd have like literally begged them in the comments, please take it away. We're dreaming of a pack of wolves.
Oh, that would be great.
I don't want to give them the satisfaction.
I don't know, but I'd have let it go on. I'd have let it go on for like to see how long it can. And then I'd have published a video on this chain of like comments and say, just to show you how fucked up the imagination can be. There's people who believe this, and then just read it out on the channel. Do you know what I mean? Because I love stuff like that. I think I open and I welcome the type that I don't welcome. So there's, you know, I don't feed trolls. If somebody's not watching the videos and just commenting based on the fact that I look like a twat, I already know that. You know what I mean? I don't need to post in the comments about that, right? But if they're saying something constructive about the channel or whatever, it's their forum to say that, and I'll address it. You know, and I think there's something great about that point about how people will believe that and are willing to believe that, and it's a testament really to what it is you're doing on the channel if people are willing to believe that you can do that type of stuff. So take it as a compliment.
Yeah,
you know?
no, I do. And I'm one of the people that I really don't block comments. I really don't like one of these I don't want to, you know, mention specific people, but it tends to the point where they kind of restrict it. And I think the point of YouTube is to kind of have this open forum, even if you're letting in a lot of ridiculousness in that sense. And I think you're going to find that as your channel grows, that you're going to find, you know, you have a lot of people that have very opinionated beliefs, but it's definitely all an experience. And I think to be able to, you know, at least me, I'm a fucking, I consider myself an old piece of shit. So to have the ability where right now I'm live, you know, and I'm able to kind of show video through the fucking planet, that blows my mind. So that alone is enough for me to, you know, just keep on with this shit and keep, you know, showing people and teaching people and hopefully having people enjoy my character when I'm doing this whole shit.
Well, I had some fun when I met you guys in Miami, and I'm interested, you know, I'd love, and I'm very open to asking, I'd love some advice on the old YouTube thing, and, you know, I'd love to talk to you about that, obviously off camera, some of all the viewers with it, but how to, you know, what direction to take that in. I'm not above asking for people that have got a successful formula. And that, again, to you guys that are watching, if you don't know something, don't feel that it's a bad thing that you don't know. Ask. You're surrounded by people that have a multitude of skills. Do you know what I mean? And Pigcake's there is now taking his mask off, so you know who he is.
Yeah, unfortunately, people see that I'm an Arab-looking Cuban short man. I mean, they already saw the shortness from before, but now it's refined, and I'm definitely on some sort of watch list. Did
you find? So here's a question for you, and it's just a strange one. Did you find that your popularity went up after you'd taken it off, or down?
Among certain groups, people didn't like it because it was very, attuned with the channel, that it was this mystery of, who I was. I wasn't really anybody outside of the magic. So it's not like me taking off my mask. Oh shit, it's Justin Miller or whatever. But it was, I think it's stayed the same. I mean, for me, it was more of a creative endeavor as to how it is that I could kind of portray emotion, because I didn't even show my body for a long time. So how can I show emotion and how can I show a character with just hands? And then it got to the point where I wore a mask just, as a compromise, that I could still do stuff and not have to worry about angles or cover my face. And then I just said, fuck it.
YOLO.
Why not, right? I think you do see a lot more emotion with that. And I really ask myself now why the fuck I bothered this entire time to spend so much effort.
I have to say, though, you look so different to how you looked in Miami. So when I met Pigcake in Miami, I had blonde hair. You were slightly taller, and you were a totally different person.
I had
he sort of more took the mask off. He's taken the hat off. He's a different person. So anybody that's under the illusion that they're both the same, they're not.
Yeah, there you go. You made a comment on my Prince Albert piercing, and I removed it for that reason. But So
I tried to. There's a guy called Dan Rivington, and he drives buses in Leeds. He's a magician as well. And he says, "Oh, Pigcake's unmasked himself." And I said, and he goes, "Is this him? Is this him? Is this who you met?" I said, "No, it looks nothing like him." Convinced him for about a month straight that it wasn't you and that it were a lie. And he was like, "How does he do the voice?" I said, I said he voiced the guy that were wearing the mask.
That's fantastic.
That's fucking great. I should have done that. I should have paid somebody and done.
You could have paid me, bro.
Yeah, but I mean that would have been people. I would have lost subscribers.
So Peter, I have a question.
Go for it.
I'd love to talk about your car collection, man.
You can ask me any question about cars. Cars are something that each one of the cars has a very specific story, and that's why they were purchased. Some of them were challenges, other things were just how cheap they were, and then everything else in between. But I've always been a bit of a sucker for cars. I watched Training Day and I saw that car on train, the Chevrolet Monte Carlo.
Oh yeah, fantastic car, bro.
Chevrolet. So I bought one. I saw one and I was like, right, I love that film. I love The Office, and I saw one come up, and at the time I had a V6 Mustang, and I bought this. So the reason for it's a chain of events, a self-perpetuating chain of events. And my dad had said to me, before he died, "Oh, I always wish I had a Mustang. More than anything else, if I had a Mustang, my life would be complete." And I don't know why he didn't just fucking buy one, but he never had this Mustang. And I saw one come up. So before he died, I'd seen one come up that needed a bit of work. And I thought this would be a great way for me and my dad to sort of get back close to each other and make a connection. So I bought this Mustang. Anyway, I picked this Mustang up and I drove it from down the bottom of the country up. So I knew it were fine.
What year Mustang was it?
It was a 2008 with this one.
Okay.
So the kind of Mustang that I look for is right between 2005 and 2008, because I love that model.
Yeah.
But I love the GT ones. And this one were a nice shape, and it wasn't a GT. It was just a V6, not the V8. And I picked it up, and I was like, "Oh, we'll have to do some work on it. Can't wait for you to see it." And then 2 days later, he drops dead, right? So I'm like, "Oh, I'm stranded with this fucking Mustang now, and don't know what to do with it." So I saw this rubber spray paint thing, and I sprayed it with a white
plastic
rubber
dip?
spray. Plastic dip, that's the stuff. And I was like, "Oh, this is easy to apply." So I applied it, and I thought, it's nice. And then I Jackson Pollock this Mustang, and just taking a load of paint and flicking it all over it, like an ape flicking shit. And I just went to town on this Mustang. And it was just a great video, and I ended up putting that on. I think it was Devil in Disguise 2, just this, as a bonus feature on there. And then I saw this Chevrolet Monte Carlo come up, and I'm like, "Oh,
great car.
I fucking want it." And then so I messaged him and said, "Would you take a Mustang for it?" He says, "What does it look like?" So I showed him this Mustang, which I couldn't register in this country with I have a guy that works in the DVLA. So this is a guy that actually works on the computer systems in the DVLA. If you want something, this guy can literally just type it in and get it to you. So if you need a V5 for a car, this guy can get you it. You know what I mean? He's like, he cuts the process of the post out. You give him a little bit of extra money, and he just cuts out the middleman, you know, the old postal system and everything else, and jumps you to the front of the queue. I've been friends with him for years. And he's like, no matter what I'm trying, they just keep bouncing back this registration. And I'm like, they're like, can you get a letter from Ford to give us the details of the car, or you're going to have to join a car club? So I put a feelers out on Facebook. Does anybody know anybody who works for Ford in America? And I find Luis Montenegro, which is like this guy that works over at the head office in Ford that's also a magician, gets me a cover note for the car with all the details of the VIN, where it's come from, what factory it was produced in, everything. Like the actual full history of this car, right? So I get it and I take it to him, still not enough. So I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, this is impossible to register this car. And I told him, I said, look, I'm having trouble registering this car. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't want to hide anything from you. And I'm like, you know, would you be interested in trading it for this Monte Carlo? And the guy's like, yeah. So I get this Chevrolet Monte Carlo.
What year?
It comes on this truck. This is 1977 Chevrolet Monte Carlo.
That's solid.
And so it's pretty much the exact same one, jet black, the same. It's actually... it's 19, C19 is the paint code, GM19, which is the jet black paint code they used in the late 70s. And so I get this Monte Carlo and I'm driving it down the road with my brother in it, right? So at this point, I've set up a trader's policy. So which a trader's policy is like a garage policy, so I can buy and sell cars. But if I jump in your car and you're my next door neighbor, I can drive it. If I buy a car, I can drive it. I get these little red plates so that I don't have to pay tax on vehicles and I can just drive them, right?
Nice.
And so he tells me, oh, you might want to recondition the gearbox. Now, in my head, I'm not thinking anything, the transmission. I'm not thinking anything at his commentary. So I get this automatic this automatic Chevrolet. I'm driving it round, and all of a sudden, the reverse gear stops working. So I'm like, shit, I can't reverse. I'm going to have to drive all the way around the block. So to get around the block where I used to live, you used to have to drive like 3 or 4 miles down a load of country lanes. And then all of a sudden, reverse starts working, but the other gears don't work. So I had to reverse like 4 or 5 miles to get me home.
So fucking ghetto.
American cars, bro.
So I'm driving this car. So I start to message people. So I drop the transmission out of this car myself. I've never done it before. Take the prop shaft off, you know, I take the braces out, drop this TH350 transmission out, take away the torque converter on the front of it. And I take this torque converter and transmission. I tried everywhere. Now, if you go to any garage in America and say, could you fix a TH350 transmission? They're like, yeah, it's a GM.
Yeah, it's a common, it's a common training.
We can do it. Not one company could I find that would do this TH350 transmission. And the companies that would do it were saying that it cost £1,000 just to look at it and to analyze whether it was something.
Might as well at that point just import a tranny from America.
Well, I tried that. So I tried everything. They've got this big block lump of a car sat there, and this company says, yeah, we can fix this transmission. So I drop it off and I'm thinking, yes, how much is it? 300 quid, perfect. Take the transmission. You know, I'm sat there, I'm waiting on it, you know, waiting. No line back. I'm ringing this guy. He's like, oh, it'll be done next week. 3 months go by, still no built transmission. Anyway, I managed to get hold of the guy. No, in fact, what happened was I first tried to look at it myself, but I didn't dare take it apart because I thought if I take this apart, I'm going to wreck it. So I took it to him. 3 months go by, nothing. And he says, oh, it didn't work, so he scrapped it. Didn't give me it back to look at it myself.
Oh, motherfucker.
So it, right? And so somebody says he sold your fucking transmission.
Yeah, I believe that.
Right, so then this company closes. Right, closes, just disappears overnight. So I'm left now with this car, no transmission. So I'm searching eBay frantically for like one of these transmissions. And this guy's like, oh, I've pulled one out of an old car. I don't know if it works or not. Like it's going to need a full rebuild. So I go pick it up and I buy it for 100 quid. And I look online and I find these master rebuild kits in America for like $150. So I order one. 2 weeks later, it arrives. Having never taken a transmission apart in my life, having no manual to do it, I just took this transmission to bits in my driveway. I had all the cogs. And I look at this, I look at the gears inside, like the clutch plates, they call them. And I'm like, fucking hell, these look very similar to a motorbike set of clutch plates. And so let's see who this is. 1 second. There's somebody calling me again. So I'll answer it and they can say hello as well.
Very popular. He's a very popular guy here.
Hey, I'm just in the middle of a live call. Can I call you back? It's frozen. Their internet connection's the worst. So I'll call you back. So somebody who's got a connection to TV companies out in Miami, incidentally, which is so I've got this transmission laid out in pieces, and I realised that each sets of these gears are the exact same as the rebuild for a clutch in a speedway bike. So it's a metal ruche, the clutch plate, a metal ruche, a clutch plate, a metal ruche, a clutch plate, and there's 3 of them. And then there's a set of planet gears which sit at the bottom, which I cleaned out. And then there's a ball bearing maze, I call it, but it was a nice simple spring ball bearing maze. And I looked at it and I picked it apart and looked underneath it, and I was like, clean it all out, put it back together, worked perfect.
Nice.
I rebuilt an automatic transmission, having never done it before.
Nice.
And then
you're ballsy, man. It's not building trains is not a cheap thing. It's not an easy thing either, man.
Yeah, I know, and it only cost me $150, about 200 pounds, including the transmission itself. So I then tried to find somebody to put this tranny back in the car. Bear in mind, I don't know if it works or not, right? And so the guy who took it out with me had said, look, I don't want what to do with it. We're a nightmare getting it out, and trying to get a tranny back in when you haven't got a ramp is pretty much near impossible. So I spent 3 weeks, night by night, I built a special jack unit that housed this thing to put it up, and I got it up myself. And then I find out that the bolts, we don't manufacture them size of bolts, because you have imperial bolts and we use metric.
We use freedom bolts.
Yes, you use different sizes. You use the in-between size of every single socket set that we have. So then I had to go and get bolts fashioned, and I managed to find some, and they were too long, so I had to cut them down, and I had to make specific bolts and brackets. I had to metal fabricate brackets to hold it in, and I did it, and it works perfect. I got that in, and then as I tell a lie. This is where I got into the bodywork. So you on your gear selector ratio, you either have it on a rail, which means that it's on the steering wheel, the column,
the steering column,
or you have the stick shift, which is in the middle, which is automatic. It's just backwards and forwards. Mine were converted to fit on both. So it had been converted to fit on both, but I wanted to take it off of the column because it stopped the car from starting sometimes because it locked itself in park. So the selector then has to be bolted onto the transmission, right? So if you follow me, it's like a U-shaped bracket like this, but you can't buy them. You can't buy them from anywhere, because mine were a custom built stick shifted put into the car.
I've never heard anyone converting it from the steering column down to the floor. That's pretty dope.
Well, mine were already done. So, but you couldn't. The bracket wouldn't fit on the shifter. So I built it, but unbeknown to me, it were locked in reverse, and I thought that were in park. So I've put the car back down onto the floor. Job well done. I'm smiling. Listen to this, and I rip it up and I start it, and the car bolts backwards out of the garage, and it takes the wing out on the side of the car, right? Because it's bolted backwards. So I stopped this car. I managed to get this car. Bear in mind, this car doesn't have brakes. Like, the brakes were so bad. I'm punching these brakes, and they're going through the floor, and I'm driving towards this grass verge near my house. I managed to stop this car by slamming it into another gear, and the car's skidding backwards. And I get it to stop. I shut the engine off. I have to override the engine. I get it off. I roll it back into my garage, and I'm looking at this wing, and I'm thinking, fucking hell, I've destroyed this car. What am I going to do? And then it hit me, just try to knock it back out. So I started knocking it out with this fucking hammer, this lump hammer. And then I decided so I get it pretty much flat using this hammer and pulling it out. And I ring a few companies, and they're like, oh, it's a classic car. It's 2-pack paint. We won't touch it. We don't want to touch it as old as that. So I learned bodywork, and I spent 2 months on one wing, flatting it, filling it, flatting it, filling it, flatting it, filling it. And I did a half-assed moderate job of it. But in the process, I learned how to spray with hand, rattle cans, and everything else. And then I put it to the side. I noticed there were all these cracks and everything else in the wing, but no one else would if you not pointed it out. And then somebody showed me a picture of a Rolls Royce that came up for sale, a 1971 Rolls Royce. And this guy had put it up for sale because all the electrics were wrecked in it. And I talked to a friend of mine who's an auto electrician, and he said, don't touch it with a barge pole. He said they don't have relays in them like normal cars. He said the lights, he says they're normally 2 wires, 3 maximum. This has got 19 wires for one light. And everything's wired onto an AC system, an accessory system, and there's map lights and all this.
Rolls Royces are the worst cars, man.
He said don't touch it with a barge pole. Anyway, when I asked the guy the price of this Rolls Royce, he was like $3,000. And I'm like, $3,000 for a Rolls Royce.
Yeah, because he didn't want to work on that thing anymore, man.
Yeah, so I bought it and I rewired the entire car.
Yeah.
Like from scratch, having never done it before, and I built all the accessories back into it, and I restored all the electrics, and I sat there and thought, I want to have a go at the bodywork. So I rebuilt some of the bodywork on it and did the bodywork on the car, and then after that, I was like, fuck, I can rewire cars now. I can do bodywork. Like, I wonder how difficult it is to actually build a car from the ground up. And then I got this little BMW Z3, and I started cutting panels off of it with an angle grinder and like ripping panels off of it till it was just a rolling chassis. And then I saw these, and I was like, "What do I want to build on it? You know, And then I saw the Cobra, and I've been a fan of Cobras for ages, but I saw these that you can go and form yourself, and put onto it, and they say, they just bolt on and you're ready to go. Not the fucking case, right? There, but you bolt one side on and the other one's up in air, and you have to like cut body panels and parts out. And I put it on, and then I did all the body work on it, and it took me about a month, and I sprayed it with cellulose, which is like a vintage type paint that reacts to anything if your prep work's not right. And then I looked at it and thought, fuck, I know how to do this bodywork fairly well now. I'm going to go back and give that wing another shot. And within 2.5 hours, I'd redone the wing on the Monte Carlo, and it looks brand new. So it was just that, and then I was like, okay, I want to start this up on a switcher race panel, so I'm going to rewire the entire car. But the creativity in me from the mentalism, like on your ignition, what you have is a ring. And it's a ring that you have a chip inside your key, and when your key touches it, it tricks the car into believing that the chip's made contact, and it doesn't immobilize itself. It doesn't deadlock itself, right? So I thought, well, I don't want to key in mine. I want to start mine on a panel, but I still want to have that security. So what I did is I ripped that ring off the ignition, extended the wires, and stuck it to the bottom of the cup holder. So when I get in the car and I throw the car keys into the cup holder, it tricks the car into believing that there's a key in the ignition, right? And so now when I start it on this little switch panel, like I roll the switches up and just turn it and press the button, it starts up like a race car, but you wouldn't be able to start it if you didn't throw the keys into the
And now we know how to take your car, man. That's pretty dope, though.
You'd still need the keys to put them in the cup holder, right? Which is, do you know what I mean? Which is cool. And then started cutting the windows out and other things, and working on glass and frames and trims, and making polycarbonate wind deflectors. And then I decided, I don't like the mirrors in this car, so I took the mirrors out and left these big holes in the body and put vintage mirrors in.
Nice.
And then flattened the doors down, and all of a sudden it just started to build and get more and more. And then I got like silly ideas in my head, like, okay, the front of a Cobra, they've got all these cooling pipes. Obviously, I've got an inbuilt radiator, so I don't need that. What could I put those cooling pipes in for? So I know what, I'm putting new lights in the body. So what I'll do is I'll run all the electrics through the cooling pipes instead of using them as cooling pipes for water, so that they're still in the front of the car. They still look to spec, but they serve a purpose. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I built a fan.
Fucking patience.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, and,
Kit cars are not are no joke.
yeah, and there were little things that I learned along the way. Like a lot of these forums were like, the airbag lights on in my car. And like they have like this security strip, which I totally took out, and I realized that if I got a 3 ohm transistor that were the same voltage and the same frequency as the strip, that I could put in a 3 ohm transistor to trick the car into believing the airbag was still in there, so that the airbag light don't kick up on the dashboard. Do you know what I mean? And learning like, without a key
Race car
inside
problems.
the car, without a key inside the car, the steering lock's still on. So I locate where the spring is, and do you know the steering lock in your car is only a spring that's that big, and finding a drill bit and locating the exact spot and drilling it so that the spring falls out. There's no steering lock on anymore, and you can just jump in, throw your keys in the cup holder, start it up, and little things that learning to find. You'll go into B&Q or a hardware store and find like strips that go on the front of cupboards, little metal strips that are finishing strips. Well, I can cut these down and make them into fins and weld them together to be the vents on the side of the car, and just finding stuff like that, and it grows and grows and grows until you're left with this big fucking thing.
And then a big hole in your wallet from all the money you spent.
The thing is with it is, I mean, to buy a decent AC Cobra over in England, you're looking at £30,000 to £40,000.
And that's a kit car. That's the kit.
Yeah.
The original, actually, it's crazy. I had a buddy of mine growing up. His father had an original AC Cobra from the 60s. And the shell alone, just the shell, is $1 million, dude.
Yeah, that's it. You can't get hold of the originals anymore. So everybody builds the kits, right? And it's not like building the kit of a Ferrari or the kit of a Lamborghini, because when you're building those kit cars, you're not proud about the fact that it's a kit car. Whereas with the Cobras, because the originals were built like that on the side of a racetrack, they were built from a series of parts from old race cars. The originals were actually kit cars. So what you're doing is you're proud about the fact that you built it. You know what I mean? So it's not like you're trying to hide the fact it's a kit car, which is it's the exclusion in the sort of kit car.
What did it do have in that Cobra?
So I bought the BMW Z3, which had less than 100,000 miles on it, but it had service history from day one and every single service. Nice. And I got that for £800. Right, so I got a working car for £800. The kit itself were about £2,500.
Wow.
And then, so you're looking at you're about £3,000 with a kit. But then the bit is that you don't realize is that they're not the expensive things. Like, for example, the chrome lips on the front, £400.
Yeah.
Because you've got to buy them off of an original Cobra. You can't buy like second-hand manufactured ones. So when you're buying like the chrome overriders or the back, you're looking at £300. For a badge that's this big, that's just a shitty badge that you could print yourself, you're looking at like £80, £90. And then that's where you start to get into your money territory. And so if you can't build it yourself, you're having to buy somebody else to build it, and if you're paying for them to build it, you're up into the hundreds and hundreds.
Good thing you've done a lot of the work yourself, though, man.
Yeah, I've probably got about £6,000 or £7,000 in it. That's all.
That's not bad.
You know what I mean? And if I sold it, I'd only put it up for under 10, because I'm not interested in making money on it. What I want is I know this is not the same as one that Ford had built. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not going to try to put it up for £30,000 or whatever. But I'd sell it, and I'd only sell it if I had another project in mind. So let's say I wanted to build like an SWB old 60s, vintage car, then I'd put the money into that.
Yeah. So hold on, real quick. The engine in there is of a Z3.
So this is the weird thing. So a straight 6 in a BMW Z3. So there's two different models. There's a 1.9 and there's a 2.9 or 3.0, and the model, the V6 straight 6 model, is pretty much to spec on the original 3-litre Cobras. They're pretty much the same.
Except one's a V. But the original Cobras were Vs, right?
V6s, yeah. So they were straight 6s. And then when they started to get into the racing, so the domestic ones that you could buy, so there were two kinds. There were domestic ones which were like 3 litres, and then there were the race ones where they tuned them up to the max, and they were hitting V8s. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the chances of fitting a V8 into them, you'd have to have it coming out the top of the car.
I didn't know that the Shelbys came with a V6.
Well, there were V8s when they sold them at the aftermarket. So the early ones were the domestic ones that you bought, because they were women's cars. I don't know if you know that. So if you watch the Shelby documentary, Mustangs and Shelbys were actually women's cars. They were made for families.
Well, they were called the poor man's Corvette back in the day. So if you couldn't afford a Corvette, you would get a Mustang.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, they were just built for shopping. And then what happened is the racing started getting so popular. So the only difference between a V6 Mustang and a V8 Mustang is the engine. That's it. That's the only difference. So you could buy a V6 Mustang for a quarter of the price, find an engine that you could get retuned yourself and drop it in, and it'd work as a V8.
That's fantastic.
There's literally no difference. And that's the thing is, if you put a V6 and a V8 side by side and you close the bonnets or the hoods, nobody could tell you the difference in the two of them. There is no difference, which is a really weird thing.
Yeah, cosmetic-wise.
And that's it. And so what they did is they upgraded to V8s for the people that wanted to, your drivers.
For the real men of America.
It's almost like in the magic world. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like they build certain things that are prestigious items that only have very small differences to the originals. I mean, for me to notice the difference in a V6 and a V8, I'm never going to be on a road. Our roads over here, one lane of your roads is the same as the two sides of the road that we drive on.
Shit. Yeah.
So I'm never going to notice a difference in a V6 to a V8, because I'd never be anywhere that I better drive fast enough to notice.
Well, when you come to Miami, I'm going to show you the difference between a V6 and a V8, man.
Well, I've got a V8 Mustang.
That's the 5.0, right?
It is. It's the 5.0 GT350, and it's also been roosh up. It's had the roosh upgrade on it, so it's not on paper, but it's technically tuned to a 5.7.
Oh, nice.
Which is which is pretty much the same as the V8 Monte Carlo, because my Monte Carlo's a V8 and my Mustang's a V8.
Yeah.
But again, I'd never be able to tell the difference because I had the V6 and I had the V8. I had the V6 Mustang before. I rebought a Mustang, a V8 Mustang, which I was showing you earlier, Danny.
Yeah.
I was showing you the V8 Mustang, and the V8 Mustang's a beautiful car. The sound of it, if you had a good exhaust on a V6, it'd sound like a standard V8. That's pretty much the only explanation I could give for the difference. I can't feel the difference when I'm driving it.
Yeah, I mean, but nothing sounds like a V8. A V8 is an American. The freedom gets louder the more you rev it.
Freedom.
I feel the thing is, if you listen to the 1977 Monte Carlo, that V8 sounds incredible. You just can't beat that sound. And the 2000 I have a 2005 because I went for the start of when they started making the GTs. I specifically looked for a year they were making the GTs, and it was a specific one that I wanted. The sound of that sounds nowhere near as good as the.
That's not the California
V8.
GT, is it?
It is the GT 350.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
And so you can't. I mean, for me, the difference in the sounds worlds apart on a modern V8 to that 77
California
V8.
is a different kind of GT too, though. It's not just a regular GT.
Well, I was gonna tell you, mind you.
And it's still not as good as the classic V8s. Like if I got a 69 Mustang now, I'd be in my element, and I'm gonna buy it. That's my next car. So my next car is gonna be it's gonna be one that I can build myself. So I'm gonna get.
You can get the kickcards for the 69s.
I'm just gonna buy one, but I'm gonna buy one that's absolutely body-wise, aesthetically is knackered. Good engine, knackered body, and I'm gonna rebuild all the panels myself.
Oh wow.
And I'm gonna do all the body work on it so it looks like and I'm gonna change the wheels out so it's spec, and I'm gonna get a real nice one. And I want to do all the body work on it.
I might take some time off and go visit you, man.
Come over. I could get rid of those 3 cars and buy a 69 one that's cherry, but I don't want to buy one that's cherry out because the thing is, when I'm driving it, I know what work I've put into it. Do you know what I mean? So it feels a little bit different when I'm driving it.
The amount of effort that you've put, mind you, I'm coming from a position where my bike didn't start up, like a little bit, like it made a weird sound that it didn't usually make, and it didn't start up, and I just took it to the shop. I didn't even consider what if I do this? What if I do that? It's like, oh, it's not working? All right, let me take it to the people that know, as opposed to tinkering. I mean, it's been 3 months.
On a bike, you're in a really lucky position. There's only 5 things that it can be why it doesn't start.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them is that it's an electrical fault problem with the starter motor.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is that it's the thing that stores the charge, or it's not getting any power, which is the battery. The third thing is that it's not getting any fuel. The fourth thing is that your engine's totally kaput and it's not working. And the fifth thing is that you've got a dodgy carburetor, and that's it. So the fuel's not getting from the carb into the carb fast enough to spark it up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's only 5 things. So I mean, before I ever take out to a shop, what I do is this: I'd go, right, is it making the starting sound? Right, we can eliminate the fact that it's the starter motor. If I open the carburetor and I spray some brake cleaner, is it kicking up? Well, then we know it's the carburetor if it's starting up.
Mm-hmm.
When you spray. Look at your fuel lines and then go, right, okay, we're down to the last thing now. Take it to the shop. I have a Bonneville. I have an American Bonnie,
Mm-hmm.
Triumph Bonneville. And I didn't have a clue about bikes or anything. I don't want anybody thinking, oh, this guy's mechanically minded, because I'm not.
Yeah, just tinkering. You're good at tinkering.
I've just found that a lot of these jobs that people charge for, like brakes and disc brakes and brake pads, they're like what I've taken cars to garages for years for, and I always thought, oh, I'll never mess with brakes.
Uh-huh.
It's as simple as taking out 2 screws, 2 bolts.
Yeah, I figured that taking my bike to I would have the shop when I first got my first bike. I would take it to tune up to the shop, and then I realized, wait a second, they finished in 5 minutes because I took the bike in, and then I called them and I said, hey man, let me know when you guys are done with the bike, and then they're like, oh, we're done. I'm like, I just dropped it off. They go, oh yeah, we're done with it.
Some WD-40,
I could do this shit,
a little bit of a rag work, and you're good to go.
Yeah, so it's really not that bad, but I rather not go through not to downplay what you've done, but I rather not go through the frustration of fucking up and then realizing, you know what, I don't want to have to take it to a shop and be like, listen, I tried doing this myself. Could you guys fix my fuckery? And then they overcharge me.
Well, over here we have a thing, right? At least in the Volkswagen world, you know, it's $100 an hour if you take it to a Volkswagen specialist.
Mhm.
Okay. If you've worked on a car yourself, it's $200 an hour.
Yeah.
And if you want to help, it's $400 an hour.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is with that is that you get. I mean, I don't ever mind. I mean, I watched Scotty Kilmer. I like people like Scotty Kilmer. You know, that started just as little things in people in the garage, and they've grown to being these YouTube sensations. And Chris Fixit, stuff like that. But like I don't mind. I mean, over here it's the same. I have friends that are mechanics that I can ring, and friends that if I'm ever in a position where I think, okay, shit, something's going wrong here. But look, I mean, I had a professional mechanic come to my house for the brakes on that Chevrolet Monte Carlo. I took it to a garage to bleed the brakes. They told me it needed bleeding. It went in the floor. It didn't work. I had some guy come round here trying to fix it and saying, oh, it's there's a split in the seal on the master cylinder or whatever. You know, there's that tube that leads up to it. I said, do you think it's the master cylinder itself? No. I read online, and there were, it was some amateur forum that I read on, just buy a new master cylinder for 28 quid and just stick it on and see what happens. And I did, and it just fixed it. And it was the easiest job in the world. Stick it on and the brakes worked straight away, So, and Rodley Motors wanted to charge me £800 to try to bleed the brakes and mess with the cylinder. So a lot of the time, like I'll always take a punt first, because over here with American cars, the end result's going to be £800 no matter what.
That's funny.
Do you know? So if I try it myself and it fails, it's still £800 that I've got to pay out before they'll do anything.
Yeah, and here they're mostly Latin American, so they're pretty much starting off fucking you. They don't. It's not like they play around. They just start off fucking.
I mean, it also depends. Yeah, we live in Miami too. We live in a city where everybody's an expert, but nobody has the experience.
Yeah.
So it's really tough, especially when it comes to like automotive work, any sort of automotive work. It's a gamble unless this is the first time that I don't do work on my car. Like the car that I have now is the first car I've ever owned that I just don't touch. But usually I do all the work myself, because I'd rather not take it to a mechanic specialist and jump up much money for no reason.
What car is it you
I have a Jetta. I have just a regular 1.8 turbo Jetta. Nothing special.
Jettas, do you know what? There's a Jetta. I could bring it up, and I bet it's still on my phone now. There's a Jetta for sale in England because we can't get them, and it's £30,000.
Yeah.
I've seen it the other day. I've seen it.
You guys
online,
can't get cigars. You can't get Jettas. What the fuck?
Freedom, baby.
You can't get anything, mate. Honestly, it's like we're talking when you looking at like the it's just loading. I mean, my phone's terrible. The internet's terrible. But there were a Jetta and we're not talking like we're talking a Jetta that like you could buy the 1.9s, the TDRs, but to get the ones that, the ones to get the ones that are properly like old style ones, there were one up for sale for like 30k the other day over here because we just can't buy them.
Yeah,
we cannot buy anything. Let me show you something. The difference in prices in. So if you were to go on eBay in America, you'd probably be able to buy a rundown Mustang for, I don't know, $4,000, $5,000, a rundown one, right?
Probably even cheaper.
Over here, to get a Mustang that needs bodywork doing on it, I'm going to click on it so you can see that. You better see the price difference. I don't know if you better see that, but I'll try to bring it up. It's just loading. The price difference in cars over here is ridiculous.
But does Ford ship Mustangs? Holy shit.
22,000.
Yeah, but that's a 66 though.
Yeah, but read it. That's a project. It's an unrestored. It's not even a unfinished project. Unfinished project that don't have a finished engine in it, and they want £22,999
for a chore, for a burden, pretty much.
That's something that's not even fixed. Do you know what I mean? So, like this is a Ford Mustang 1966 coupe 6-cylinder. So it's only a V6, parts fitted, no engine, £11,000.
The engine's a piece of paper.
Yeah, but those cars also had to be imported into the country, right?
Yeah, and so to import a car into the country, it's about £2,000.
Yeah.
So if I could find somebody in America that could find one and get it onto a ship for me,
talk to your boy.
That'd be great. I mean, you can't look at. I mean, this is not bad. Project classic white American Mustang V8. So you look at this and it looks great. Look at the price on it. You think to yourself, this is a 1968. It looks brilliant. So you got a nice looking car,
Gorgeous car.
right? And it's looking real nice. And then you read the description. So it goes in. It's a shell of a car.
It has 4 wheels and the
I was gonna say I like that it's a running joke. It's like, oh, you're gonna get a car. It's a beautiful car. It has all 4 tires. The
doors,
shell,
2 doors.
Yeah.
You know, a trunk, a hood.
Yeah. The engine is we don't know where it went. There's a lot of wiring. There's a lot of wires sticking out. You're really gonna have to figure it out on your own. $80,000.
That's it. It's nuts. It's absolutely crazy. And like, if I lived over there, I'd be in my element because American cars are my favorite. But I'm not. So sadly, I have to either get them imported or have somebody have the burden of importing them and then charging me ridiculous amounts of money to import them, because you've got to register them as well.
Yeah.
And then they'll charge you 500 to 1,000 just to register them.
And gas ain't cheap over there either, right?
So this is something that's mad. So somebody asked me the other day how much a litre or maybe a gallon, I think it were a gallon of gas is petrol. So a gallon for us would work out about $7 for you.
A gallon?
£5.
Nice.
About £5.50, £6 for a gallon of gas.
Fuck that shit, bro.
Yeah,
I'm
get a
walking
bike.
my ass wherever the fuck I gotta go if it's $7 a fucking gallon.
Let me tell you, I like that's what I like about having a bike. That's like, oh yeah, man, this is crazy. 90 miles per gallon. It's 2 gallons though. But I'm paying pennies for gas.
Yeah.
So every time I go, I just pay pennies for gas.
Or just run out of gas like you always do.
Yeah, there was 3 times in my last bike because it doesn't have a fucking indicator for gasoline. And now it doesn't even have a motor.
Yeah, but the worst part is, so when's the last time you put a gas? Oh, like, no, it's great. It's great on gas. I haven't put gas in a month.
It's been running for months. It's great. Peter, we have some Instagram questions here for you. I don't know if I hate to put a limit on your conversational skills here, but I would say if I ask you a question, try to reduce it down to a minute.
I will do. So listen, let's do 5 questions.
Okay.
1 minute answer for each one, and then we'll call it a day.
That sounds
so
hot.
We've got another 5 minutes, and then we call it a day.
Okay, that sounds great. So I gotta find. Did you sift any of these questions, Daniel, before? Okay, I have a wonderful producer and/or co-host that in all this time he could have sifted these questions. So now I have to sift this.
Well, my brain's still mind fucked from getting Peter Turnered, you know?
Well, well, not only that, but also any opportunity you get to have to speak about cars is also something that you take, because God knows you're not talking to me about cars.
Hey, Peter, but just FYI, man, let me know what you're looking for car stuff here in America. I got Ford friends, I got Chevy friends, it runs deep, bro.
We'll do it, because I'd love to just import something. That might be my next thing. Right, let's go for it. Big Kate, give me some of these questions.
Yeah, I was going to tell you what I love about the audience that we've managed to amass here is that most of the people are cunts. So, for example, one question here is like, what did I eat for breakfast? Or another question is, on a scale of 1 to 2, how good is Pig Cake at giving blowjobs? So that's the sort of...
So the answer to those, the interesting thing is, even though you two have never met each other, the answer to that question is the exact same. They're both tied together. They cancel each other out. So it tells you what Pig Cake had for breakfast.
You motherfucker. Funny enough, you had a question here that you already answered. It said, what do you think of all the stack watch controversies? I already think you answered that one well enough. You spent about 30 minutes, I think, talking about that.
Yeah, so next question. We'll fire through them. 5 questions, 5 minutes, then I'm going to go have my dinner.
Okay, let me go through this one. This one's kind of, I guess you could answer this one well. How to do table-to-table performances in bars and pubs in spite of loud music. I think that's an interesting one in the sense of it's easier to do magic. I think I believe Apollo Robbins and Shuto Gawa had a whole project dedicated to tricks that you could do without really saying much that are visual. But when it comes to mentalism, it's a lot more conversational. You really have that's a good question.
Yeah, a lot of the time I either stick to stuff that's really easy and visual, like just guessing playing cards, having people write something down. You know, if I said to you, take this, write down anything, like in my gestures could say that, fold it up, boom, I can reveal it. Just stick to stuff that's really quick, really visual, easy for people to follow. At the same time, try to find things that look visual. Like, for example, hypnosis doesn't require you to say too much, and you can lean in and whisper to the person. There's a motivated reason for it. I just say that, pick your venues carefully and try not to book too many venues that have loud music on. And if you know the booker or the booker's booking you, tell them that you require the ability to be able to talk to perform, and that's it, done. Easy.
That's a great point. And I do think that a lot of people are afraid of failure, and a lot of people are afraid of getting to a position where they're gonna embarrass themselves in a crowd, which is why they ask a lot of questions like, what do you do in this case? Do it. You know, if you're going to fail, you're going to fail. But I forgot one of the best tips in terms of trying to act or trying to overcome that fear is to go in front of a large group of people and just purposely fail and experience that and realize, you know, fuck, this isn't that bad. But a lot of people are afraid of that. And a lot of, I would say even, you know, purposely book a situation like that and see what you would do just to, you know, you're going to have a...
You know, you quickly find what, after doing it for 5-10 minutes, you quickly know the next time you're going to do that, what to bring with you and what to do. You know, it's very hard for me. The thing with me is I'll turn up to a venue and I'll do something and think, oh, I'm going to do this here, and then I'll turn up somewhere else and do something else somewhere else, just because that's the route for me. Is I do what I feel at the time. You know, you're perfectly motivated then. I mean, find routines where you know, have a set of flashcards that tell people what to do. It's very loud in here. Nobody can hear me. I want somebody who wants to volunteer to think of a name. Take this piece of card, you know, and go through a set of flashcards if you have to.
That's silent treatment.
Yeah, that's it. You know, 1,000,001 different ways and different things that you can do, but just be quick, make it interesting, make it visual, and just then move on. And at the end, remember, in that situation, it doesn't matter how bad you are, because the booker's never going to hear how bad you are. So you're all right.
Yeah, good point. This one's an interesting one. What is interesting in the context of a sea of shitty questions. But it says, what is something you hate and something you love about magic and mentalism? So I guess you know, you said it earlier, like what you don't really hate a lot. But
yeah, listen, I'm impartial, and I know that I'm indifferent. You have to care to be bothered. And the thing is that I don't care enough about what other people are doing to let it affect me so I lose sleep. All I ever focus on is what am I doing, and you know, is what I'm doing the way that I want to do it without hurting anybody purposefully, because you're always going to offend somebody. No matter what you're fucking doing, you're going to offend somebody. You know, so what I love about it is the fact that we have the creative freedom to express ourselves. What I hate about it is the fact that if somebody doesn't agree with your vision, then all of a sudden you're the biggest cunt on the planet.
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's it. Instead of just saying, oh, it's not for me, but fair enough.
You know, I remember... sorry, go ahead.
It could just be as quick as that. It could be as quick as going, no, I'm not interested in that. I don't need to go online and then publicly slam it. You know, I don't need to comment on it. At the end of the day, there's a lot of paper articles that I read about that I don't post about because they don't bother me enough to be...
I was gonna tell you, I've personally seen I don't know how you have the patience for that, but I've seen you like go back and forth with people on the Magic Cafe, and I'm like, why would you even bother with a fucking cesspool like the Magic Cafe?
So, the honest answer to that question is this: is that I always believe that you should try to leave somewhere in a better position than when you first entered, and I do that, you know, whoever I meet, if I can help somebody out, I'll help them out or whatever. And for the one person that's sat there complaining, there's 8 other people there that don't know what direction to take their own mind reading and magic in. So I just provide an alternative opinion for those other 8 people so they can make up their minds. But you know, I have to say I can't complain really about the controversy. Go back to, if you ever have time, just search my name on Magic Cafe and go back 7 years. 7 years ago, everybody in this community were against me. Everybody tuned to my penguin lecture to see me fail. Everybody wanted to Skype me to see me fuck up so they could talk about it on the Magic Cafe, because it was controversial stuff. Nobody were doing pin code divinations and name guesses and this and that, and because I started doing that and because I were doing it, people talked about it. And he doesn't perform for real audiences. He's never performed in the real world. Well, fucking come to my gig. Why should I have to come to your gig to see you perform? Well, you're the fucking one that wants to see me perform. Do you know what I mean? Like the fact of the matter is that, and I've overcome all those battles, and I always did it from a fair to middling position where I were always polite, and very. It's not very often that I'll go out and actively say something. Again, you know, I think the last time that I ever said something were on that Magic Roasted page. I was just like, what the fuck have you ever done that's of noteworth?
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not saying I've done anything of value or noteworth value, but what I'm saying is that put up or shut up. Show us a video of you doing something, or show us one of your creations, so that we can offset it against the difference between what this is and what that is. And if yours is up here and this one's down here, then you have a point. Do you know what I mean? But then at the same time, I think everybody should have the ability to be able to have an opinion. So their opinion I value as much. I just don't, like I said earlier, don't do it from behind the veil of anonymity. Come out and have the bollocks to actually say it with your name attached to it.
Yeah,
and at least let me enter into a debate with a person and not just a fucking name.
You're right, but I think a lot of people are going to have apprehension about that, and the vehicle of the internet really does aid in them being able to say that opinion, because the truth of the matter is they would never say that to you in person, or if their identity was up front, like right there as they are. You know, very few times you'll, or at least, you know, from what I've seen, I really did enjoy my time. We went to a Magi Fest in Columbus this past year, and what I love is you have all these people on the internet just like on top of each other, right? And in person it's like nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So
and even when there's tension, they'll just like not look at each other.
Yeah, all this talk on the internet.
But look, I mean, come on, then don't say it. You know, like, what are you doing it to bolster your own position in a community that nobody knows about? I mean, what is it? We're arguing about fucking bits of paper and envelopes and watches. Do you know what I mean? Come on.
Yeah.
Like
I'll fucking kill you. It's like, oh, you'll kill me? I'll kill you. It's like we're doing card tricks. You know?
Spongeballs.
Listen, I've seen magicians circling each other to fist fight at conventions, and then they both bottle it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, either fucking fist fight and get it over with, you know, brush each other off and go to the bar and get a drink, or just don't mention it. There's no need to mention it. So that's probably what I hate about the magic community, is that people don't have the balls to actually come out from behind a screen name and say, look, I'm fucking this person and I want to say this. And then, but the thing is, I'd love that, because I'd say, and I said it to Danny earlier on. Danny were like, oh, you know, what don't you want to talk about? I said, there's a couple of things I don't want you to mention. One is my private life, or unless I bring the subject up, or, you know, my relationships, whatever, unless I bring it up. Now, if for example, I said to Danny, if somebody wants to be invited on the call to debate me about the Stack Watch, I don't mind that. Come on and talk about one of my products you didn't like and tell me your reasons why you didn't like it, and I'll answer you why I don't give a fuck. You know, like, but the thing is that if I ever want to say something to somebody, I don't have a mincy tiny pair of bollocks. I'll fucking say, I don't like that and it's wrong. And I feel your opinion's wrong, but opinions are like assholes. We all have them. They don't all fucking smell sweet. Do you know what I mean? I'm not here to, you know, I'll say the points that I like. You can give me your points. I'll counter my points if I've already thought of the reasons that you're saying and why this makes sense to me. And maybe it'll give you a new perspective, or it might give me a perspective on why it's a shitty product and I didn't see that in the first place.
Yeah, good point. I mean, great point apart from the asshole, because my asshole smells like Ralph Lauren Polo Black.
Well, there you go. Then you're all right. You're one of the lucky few.
Yeah. We'll have two more, and then I think we'll call it here. So that's this good. One, it says, which effect that you created do you enjoy performing the most for people? Again, I would hate to ask you this question myself, but it is something that somebody asked you. So what effect do you have the most fun?
I mean, if I were to sum it up in an effect, I have a 3-phase touches style routine that's a hypnosis.
Midas touch, right?
So what I do, Midas touch with my version of lift. But then I finish it with like a hypno piece where I have somebody think of a word and I talk about, and this was something I really loved. I'd seen a few people doing it, and I was talking to Robert Watkins about this years ago. But that idea of, if you're really stealing a thought from somebody's head, does it still exist inside the head or not? Just a philosophical question, but I thought, you know, like, so I like this piece where they at the start, they do this thing where I get in sync when I do the touches, move it into lift. I might use a doll if I have a doll, if I'm doing a stage show, voodoo doll or whatever. If not, I'll draw a drawing of the person. I'll write the word inside the head, inside the bubble of the head, and then I'll take a word from the head and I'll replace it with one that I want, and it ends up being that word. It's a long, convoluted thing to explain, but to watch it, it's like, I call it poetry in motion. It's a good 10, 15 minute set, and they're my favorite things to perform. But more than that, I like asking them about them, because you meet so many interesting people and you're so busy wanting to show them a card trick or a quick piece of mentalism that you miss what's really important. And sometimes these have these incredible stories.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
And so I think affect is probably the best thing. You can not affect, like, you know, what's the best effect because what affect you have on somebody and what effect they have on you, and that be a human first, probably.
Yeah, you're right, and that's one of the things that I'm always kind of touting is the idea of understanding situation, understanding context, and not overstaying your welcome. Because I think too many times magicians and mentalists are very inclined. Oh, I have somebody, let me show them everything. But really, sometimes just listening to them. You know, you're going to get an experience with this individual. Why the fuck would you muddle that with a card trick? Why the fuck are you going to muddle that by telling them what number they're thinking of? Maybe you could show something and they tell you an interesting story. That to me would be worth more than me doing my fucking 12-minute set on them, you know?
Do you know the amount of times that I've sat there and I was, you know, so I went around to a friend's. When they lapsed the when they lapsed the lockdown in England, we had this thing where you could meet a certain amount of people, but you had to stay outside and you had to be a few meters apart. And now one of my friends were like a real warrior, and he's like 5 meters apart, but he were his daughter's like birthday party, and they had a few friends that were around. He's like, "Oh, can you just quickly show them something?" I'm like, "For fuck's sake," you know. But so I did like one thing. But I'd spent the entire night listening to everybody else and not talking, right? And so I'd heard Maureen talking about the fact that she's dating a neighbour. But my presence there, she didn't know me, so she had no reason to even factor me into the thought process while she were talking, right? And so after I'd done this like one little performance, they're all asking me questions, and I'm asking them questions about their life. And I'm saying things like, "Oh, you know, so how long have you been dating Pat for?" Which is a neighbour. And I was just asking like general questions. And she's like, "How did he know that I'm dating?" So even just general conversation that I were having seemed much more powerful based on the fact that I actually use these and not this.
It'd be great that every time after you did that, someone comes out and says, "You've been Peter Turnered."
It's fucking terrible.
Danny loves it, doesn't he? So yeah, like, you know, it's just that is that sometimes conversations are best thing, and more often than not, you know, the best trick, and I call it a trick because it is a trick, there's an act to it, is implying you know more than you do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's the best thing that you could do is if you ever don't want to answer. So this were a really cool one. I don't know if I ever and this would be right up your street. Really, your style is this. I think Big Cake, you'd get a kick out of it. So, do you know? I don't know if I've talked to you about this. I'm asking you an obvious question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just in case on the off chance. Do you know what a safe word is?
Yeah.
Right. So imagine I were reading your mind, and I'm climbing inside your head, and I get a little bit too close to something that you feel is too personal. Could you think of, off the top of your head now, a safe word that if I did get a little bit too close or a little bit too personal, you could think of, and that'd let me know that I were getting a little bit too personal. I could back away.
Yeah.
Could you do that for me?
Yeah.
So you have a safe word in your head, right?
Yeah.
So now you have this like brilliant moment that's created off the back of something that's outside of mentalism, right? But one thing I found is when I'm doing this, if I get to a part in a routine or I'm running out of answers, or I'm like, there's no more cold reading Barnum statements, or I'm not feeling anything, I'm just hitting a brick wall, I could say, you know, it's really interesting. I don't know why I just got this thought. But you just think something like a fruit or something like that just popped into your head, like a piece of food or a fruit or something. It was like a banana or something like that. What was your safe word?
Pineapple.
Pineapple, piece of fruit. There it is. And I knew I were getting a little bit close. I felt it were a piece of fruit, something sweet, and that's where we'll leave it right now, and we'll move on, right? And it's really fucking cool, right? Because you have this moment now where you have this great moment where it seems like you've touched upon this person's subconscious safe word to stop, but you're almost nailing the safe word, or close enough to.
You've been Peter Turnered.
Oh, fuck you. That's it. Yeah, but that's
great.
100% right. Even if that's a hit, 100% a hit. Even if, you know, it wasn't a banana, it was a fucking fruit. You know,
it's like a piece of fruit.
Yeah.
But I don't say it is a banana. I go like a piece of fruit, like a banana or something like that. What was it? What were the, you know, a piece of fruit or a fruit? And most people go for fruit drinks or food like chocolate or something like that, right? So you're covering all bases, but it gives you your excuse to sort of move on.
Yeah. You're right. But fucking.
I love little things like that, you know, little moments that nobody else is thinking of, like, oh, there's this safe word here that lets you know without saying stop and becoming embarrassing. Well, why would I apply that to something that's more private than that? Do you know what I mean? And I love thinking of little things like that. So they're the kinds of effects I really love in performance, little things like that.
And that fucking sticks. And those little things, I find people will probably, it's the offhanded shit you do that I think people remember the most. Like, there's a trick where you have a small Sharpie and then you uncap it and it turns into a big Sharpie, and then you give it to them and then they sign the card. They're more likely gonna remember that shit than the fucking 12-face ambitious card that you did. Dude, he just took a marker. It's fucking.
You know, one little thing to add to that small marker thing, right? And I used to pull these out all the time, and the amount of times that people would react at how small and cute the little marker pen was, right? Yeah. So what I do when I pull this, if you're going to do that, and you pull this little marker pen out, and you sort of smile and you look to the side and look back at like a woman that's saying, you go, I agree, it's cute, isn't it? And don't say anything else. And if in her head she were thinking, damn, that's a cute little marker pen, you'll get a reaction there of a free trick. If not, everybody else just thinks she were thinking it were cute, and then turn it into your big marker pen. Do you know what I mean? And you move into it just by mentioning, via proxy, you've got that extra hit by implying you know something that didn't exist before.
Yeah,
right?
hits.
And all that, and however many times you can find to fit that in there. Do you know what I mean? Like all those little times where, let's say there's a moment in performance that you know is really jarring, or you know is really boring, but you have to go through it and it's procedural. Right, you have to get to the effect, end of the effect. As they're shuffling it, you can pretend you can hear somebody's thoughts saying, "This is boring as fuck." Do you know what I mean? And you can laugh with them and say, I think it's boring as well, but we have to fucking enjoy it together. And say, "Oh, you didn't say that out loud. Sorry." You know, like that little moment where, and then now you've painted red the fact that somebody else thought it were boring. You've let that moment out that this guy knows this is boring. He's not boring. He knows this is, and he knows what I'm thinking. So I best not think anything else.
Yeah.
So you've got these little moments that you can weave into performance that kill and paint red the fact that this is a boring procedural moment. So yeah, I know I'm going on a tangent again. So right, last question.
Yeah, I know, but just to kind of build on that, you're right.
Fantastic.
And I do hate that people, for example, hear that and they'll be like, yeah, but how do you do the any card, any number? They'll hear that and they'll be like, yeah, but I want to know how you did that. I'm like, that is worth fucking more than anything. Just little tips like that.
The any card at any number is a really simple process.
Yeah, no, I'm using it as an example. I'm not saying because I don't give a shit, but I'm saying like
I'm going to give somebody a method for the any card at any number. I'll give you it. Right, it's the simplest. So you take a deck of cards and you ask somebody. So let's say it's the 6 of clubs. So think of a number it could be at. Pick cake, any number you want.
15.
You said it out loud. Do you want to stay where you are? Go a couple either way. It doesn't matter to me. It's completely up to you. You don't have to change if you don't want.
I'll stay.
Okay. So do you want to deal these face up? Do you want to deal them face down? It's up to you.
Let's deal them face up.
So now, if that card, the 6 of clubs, were at the 15th position, would that be impressive?
Yeah. Yeah, it would be.
But we'll never find out if it's there.
Phenomenal. That's great. I love that.
What I'm saying is that intrigue is it there? Is it not? Were you right early? And purposefully, and I do that with magicians all the time. I love that moment where I take the top 2 cards and I pretend I'm about to do something and then put them back on the top.
Yeah.
That moment where people are going, there's no fucking way it's at 15 now. End it there. That's a better feeling than the moment it ends up being at 15 for me.
Yeah.
Right? Of course it's not at 15. I'm pressing the point that if you can bottle that feeling at that moment and you can find ways to play on that moment.
You're right.
That's what you want to be selling. Forget the cards. Forget the any card at any number. It makes no difference.
Yeah.
So the best way to do any card at any number is to find a way to bottle that for other magicians and fucking sell it over and over and over again.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. I was gonna tell you, I had a video the other day where I was talking about something. It's like the number one method that it seems like magicians are apprehensive about doing for some reason. I don't know why. We pretty much have a whole practice based on lies, but they refuse to lie outright to a spectator. They refuse to lie, or to magicians, to fool magicians. You'd be surprised as to how much you could get away with by just fucking lying to them, by just straight up like gritting through your teeth. And what obligation do you have to tell the truth? There's none.
You don't. And that's the thing. And do you know what is this? This is it. This is one thing I always say to a lot of people, and it's this: is one of my favorite performers of all time is David Berglas, one of the greatest of all time. And I'm sure David would happily admit that he doesn't know how he did half the things that he did. Not because he doesn't have a method, it's just because in that moment he created something in his head and he went with it, and it ended up being a miracle. And then you ask him like now, and he's like, "Oh, I don't even remember that performance, but I'm not going to deny the fact that I performed something that did that." Right? And that's the thing. So
lying. That's my favorite method. By all means, just lying.
He just says it works like that every time or whatever. So, if you're, and another thing is as well, is I've a lot of times I've lied the opposite way. So another way you could do it is let's say that I've hit upon a miracle where I've got you to reverse one card, or we were talking about the invisible deck earlier on, and I'll put the deck in the box on the table and they'll say, how the fuck did you do that? I say, it's simple. You weren't fooled by an invisible deck. And if I've not used an invisible deck, I'll say you weren't fooled by an invisible deck. They'll go, you twat, it's not an invisible deck. And then they'll pick up the box and go through it, and then go and they find it's not an invisible deck. And I double by lying to them about what the method was to create an extra hit.
Yeah, was that Dunninger that did that? Dunninger with the slate?
All the time. I mean, Dunninger released a full book of methods that didn't really exist.
Yeah.
So, because he were worried at one point they were getting so popular that he thought people were buying his books at the end of his show. So he actually created a series of false methods.
Tremendous.
That he sold to magicians, And I think even Luke Jamay did it at one point where he released a series and he put it out on torrent sites for free, so that he knew if anybody ever asked him how, what, I don't get the method for this. What he knew then at that point that they were torrenting his material.
That's tremendous. That's fucking great. Yeah, that's pretty genius.
So you have to sort of look at it that way. Is a lie is a lie is a lie is a lie is a lie. You know what I mean? And he who lies the most when it comes to performance is always going to be the one. I mean, you have to obviously be sincere. There's places you have to be sincere, and there's places you have to lie. And if you want to protect something, then, and you don't want people to know what it is, lie. But there's certain things that I'd say don't lie about.
Well, if you're marketing a trick, I wouldn't lie.
Well, no, I mean, in that case, and another one's this, I don't say, like, for example, I've said I've not stooged Danny. I've not stooged Danny. But I won't say, I've not stooged Danny and then stooge Danny, especially when you guys run this video that's like, okay, we're going to talk afterwards.
Yeah.
And then you have the power of then going on YouTube and saying, oh, that Pete Turner, all he does is fucking stooges people. You're causing yourself a fall there. That's that type of stuff. You've got to be really careful where you lie and where you don't. Because what you don't want is the lie's got to be plausible enough not to bite you back in the ass and cost you your career or your problem or reputation.
That's true. That's true. But I think in that sense, it would be if, I mean, I'm kind of more hardline than you in that sense, where I would lie, but as I could find a way that they can't prove it, then I'm good. I'll be satisfied with that.
What I'm saying is, in this scenario, it'd be very difficult for me to lie and get away with it.
Well, I mean, even then, it would be my word against your word.
To a degree, it'd be Danny's word.
Danny's word, yeah, okay.
I'm an honest person, guys.
No, but what I'm saying to you is that it'd be Danny's word, and it'd only take, for example, look at it in this situation. You have 50,000 followers on YouTube. I don't have 50,000 followers on YouTube, so your word holds a lot more clout than mine in that regard. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but okay.
It'd be a very silly situation for me to put myself in, because one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to go away and then we promote this series of people who just go out there and start lying about what gigs they've got and lying about this. Thinking it's right to then lie about who they're working with, and then all of a sudden, then what happens is they get caught lying in this big scandal in some way, shape, or form that ends up, like, for example, there were a mentalist that took a load of photographs with wax figures and photoshopped skin textures onto them and told people he performed for a load of celebrities.
That's great.
And got caught though. Paul. I think we're like Paul something, but he got caught. Yeah. And I'd hate to think that then what happens is when somebody goes, you fucking lied. What's your reason for telling these lies? Oh, Pete Turner and Pigcake said it were all right to do it.
Okay. Well, what I meant was lying as a method per se, not lying necessarily as your as an individual. Lying as a method, I think that's fine. But again, you do have to, be mindful of what it is.
Lie all you want. I mean, the fact is real simple. Is that it comes down to you.
Yeah.
So when you're talking to other magicians, sometimes the method can actually be more impressive than the presentation to a magician, right? And if it's one of those moments where they go, "Ooh, actually that little method there is really clever," then you might get more gratification out of sharing the method.
Yeah.
Something to talk about, but I mean, I don't mind. I tell people all the time things are done a certain way when they're not, and I don't mind letting people believe something is done a certain way from what they've heard, and years and years ago there were this talk of me being able to do this thing called lipping, where I'd read somebody's lips. And the truth is that, yeah, I could do that, but not to the degree that it were being made out on the internet. Do you know what I mean? Like I'd be able to do it occasionally where I'd notice somebody would voice a certain thing and I'd know, oh, that looks like a 6. I'm going to go for a fucking 6 here. Or I'd ask somebody, name a number. And as they went to say it, I'd say, no, don't tell me. In fact, let's try this. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'd stop them as their mouth started to form the number, and then I'd run through and do it. And then this lie sort of took off that I could do this great thing where I just look at you and by those micro muscle movements in your lips, I could tell you what you were thinking of. And I didn't out and out deny it. You know what I mean? I didn't say, no, I can't do it. If you ask me now, years later, I'd say, oh, of course I capitalized on that. Do you know what I mean? It was an incredible story that people were sharing about me. And I wasn't going to stand there and say, no, it's not possible.
Yeah, I didn't do it. No.
But,
it's
that's
yeah.
it.
I was gonna.
So capitalize on these amazing things that people are saying about you and let them believe what they want.
Yeah, what I was gonna say. Sorry to interrupt, but I was saying on how layman's memories tend to be obviously skewed depending on words you say. So they might remember something completely different. You're not gonna correct them if they say, "Oh, he didn't touch the deck," or "He didn't shuffle the deck," after you've specifically shuffled the deck and placed it and said, "I haven't touched the deck." You're not going to correct them on that. So in a sense, we are lying in that case, and we're not going to correct them. So
well, anybody that says they're reading somebody's mind or body language when they've read a bit of paper, lying.
Yeah.
So unless you've got, I don't ever feel guilty about that because I have methods to do it, and I inverted commas for real. Right, and what I mean by that is I'm not psychically reading somebody's mind, but I've created a framework or a system to be able to replicate what it'd look like if I could, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I might not be using it in this performance this time, but next time I might.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's the extension of the lie as well that I think you got to take into account. But it's a good question. It's a very good question, and it makes me wonder if you're lying about the fact that you like to lie.
Maybe.
So you put me into a paradox.
You've been pig-caked.
You've been pig-caked. We have one last question. I don't know to the extent of which you want to answer per se, but what do you think about the controversy behind the effect breached?
Breached. I knew this were going to come up. So this is it. So I got raked over the coals for saying that I liked something. And do you know what? I said that at the time, and I'll say it again, I stand by my analysis of that routine. Now, bearing in mind, I've come out and I've said 4 or 5 things in this call. I don't know tech, right? And I'm not. So for me, when I saw something like that the first time, it didn't, in my head, click the fact that somebody could hack my phone and send messages from my device and receive the messages that I were receiving. It just didn't factor into my head, especially when you're looking at something that's supposed to be end-to-end encrypted. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I saw the effect, I didn't care about the method. I was like, Ryan showed me 1,000,001 things and they're all shit. And then he showed me something that's great.
You're like,
I'm like, this is brilliant. And I admitted it and I were open about it. And he asked me for a testimony, so I give him it. It wasn't because he was my friend, and it wasn't because I were benefiting from it. It was because I genuinely enjoyed the experience. Now, when the whole controversy broke, people started coming up with ridiculous analogies. And my problem with the controversy is this, is people are booked to steal from people's pockets. The pickpockets are booked as entertainers. Now, is pickpocketing not illegal? Is it not illegal to dip your hands into somebody's pocket and take their possessions? Well, for entertainment, it becomes all right. Now, when you're saying that you're going to trick somebody and you're going to give them an experience, it's by any means necessary, right? And it's no different to being booked as a professional pickpocket. Now, the fact is that if you said to somebody, look, technology is flimsy, and it's flimsy because of the data that we input. The next thing I'm about to show you, you're going to get to decide if it's the tech that's giving it away or your mind. Do you know what I mean? Or you came up with some sentence, or I wouldn't. I don't care. I don't care enough to be able to. I don't care enough to think about it like that. But the fact is this: is if you can't trust yourself, if you said to me, when you give me your phone and you say, yeah, do a PIN code unlock. When I unlock your phone, I don't rape through your messages. I don't start to go through your private stuff. I don't bother doing any of that. I lock the phone up and I give you it back. And I trust myself to be able to unlock your phone without going through all your stuff, and then I give you it back. If you're performing breached, the only people that are worried about performing that are people who don't trust themselves to be able to receive and send the one message required to receive and send, and then take the self out of the phone. That's it. At the end of the day, it's no different to somebody handing me their wallet to do a trick with, or handing me a £20 note. I'm not going to run away with it. If you can't be trusted to keep hold of a £20 note and not run away in performance, don't ask for a £20 note. So my point were always that, yeah, there's a controversy, but all this method requires is 10 seconds of doing this, or 5 seconds, and now think of a contact in your phone and send them a message. I look at the name of the contact that pops up. That's it. I reveal the name. Imagine sending them a text message. I send a text message. I don't read any text messages. I can see the notification of the one word that they sent that I asked them to send, and then the one sentence that I'm sending myself or whatever, or Ryan send whoever, and that's it. I can trust myself to not read through what they were doing yesterday or what they had for the tea last night. And as soon as that's ended, I press log out on my phone and it's done.
Okay.
And if you can't trust yourself to do that, then there's an inherent problem with you, not the method and not me. You know, if you're being booked as a pickpocket for entertainment and you can't trust yourself to not dip your hand into someone's pocket and steal and leave with their driver's license and their wallet and bank cards, keys, whatever, then don't perform pickpocketing. So my opinion on the controversy, whether it were an unfounded controversy, and I got pulled into it because of a testimony that I give. Well, I don't take back the fact that I thought it were a great effect, because I did. If somebody used a stooge and fooled me with a stooge because they framed it up in such a way that I couldn't see how this could be a stooge, and they fooled me with it and said, could you give me a testimony for that effect? I'd give them a testimony because I enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed the performance. I felt fooled and it were a nice feeling. I'm not going to then turn around and go, oh, I don't promote this because, you know, it didn't even, because of my innocent mind, maybe, it didn't factor into my head the things that other people could do with this. It just factored into my head, well, okay, you're reading the name and a text message somebody sent somebody, you're going to send one back and then you're going to log out. It didn't factor into my head anything else.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right in that sense. And the pickpocket analogy, I think, is great because I found myself, I've read more and I've seen more of the arguments against it than for it as a method for the actual trick. I've seen more arguments, saying like, oh, you could take advantage of this. But it's the same thing with pickpocketing. You can learn the techniques. And if you are, for example, putting out this method that people can take advantage of, it's the same shit with pickpocketing. What's to say that somebody doesn't learn the techniques and they don't use it for entertainment in that sense? They use it for, it's fucking use as pickpocketing.
Lock picking, people learn that as part of an art form.
Yeah.
Who says they don't use that to break into people's houses? I'm not here to promote ways, and I don't want to promote ways to cause anything that's going to be essentially stealing somebody's privacy. That won't what we're about. What's the difference, right? So this is it. You've got your fancy little lab code device. You ask somebody to write their PIN code down on, and it transmits it from the pad onto a little receiver in your pocket, and you're reading somebody's private PIN code. What's the difference between that and somebody typing in a random word that means nothing and sending it to somebody's phone and you receiving it on your little receiver that's in your pocket, and it's just the word and the name? In my head, there's no difference. The only difference is the procedure that we use to get to that point. If I said to you, write down your bra size, now write down your most private secret, now write down this, and I was secretly transmitting all that information back to a receiver in my pocket, then I could understand that being a problem, because you shouldn't be asking people about that type of stuff anyway. But to me, if I said to you, write down a name, write down a random word you'd send this person, and now write down a text message you'd like to send them, and I received it on a little pocket receiver from a LabCore, a Mindbuster, whatever, that's no different to using it that way for me. The only difference is that, yeah, if you wanted, you do have access to the private information, but don't read it.
Okay.
That comes down to your conscience, and that comes down to you as a performer. And ultimately, I didn't create it. So if you want to attack somebody for it, go attack Ryan Tricks.
That's fucking great. I was gonna tell you,
I didn't invent stooging. I didn't invent breached. All I did is give it a testimony. I give it a quote because I love the effect. And if you read my quote, my quote was something like, Ryan fooled me with this. He showed me 101 different things and they were all shit. I thought this were great. I don't know how he did it. It were a brilliant thing, and I'm here to tell you that he's releasing it. That were it. Do you know I even paid for my own copy of the book? That's how tight-arsed Ryan is. I tell you what, that guy's so tight-arsed. If you stuck a piece of coal up the cunt's arse, it'd mine itself and it'd come back out a diamond. Right? I had to buy my own. So for anybody complaining about the fact that they spent £100 on a book, I spent £100 on it too. I didn't get one for free.
Yeah. I mean, I as far as that, I do remember seeing the controversy, and we even talked to we had Dan Ives, Sleight of Tongue, on the show before, and you know, all points. I guess whenever I see an argument like this, I do like seeing all points and seeing, you know, from what sides there are for this particular thing. But it's always interesting to see when an effect is controversial in that sense. You know, it's always interesting to see when somebody comes up with a method that does border on that line and border on that edge. And I do find that very interesting. And it's definitely a tremendous effect. You know, it really is a wonderful effect. And,
you know, it's great.
Yeah, but it's the methodology, and you have a lot of controversy. It's not going to stop being controversial. You know, whether or not that's one of, you know, starting up a sort of idea of where it is that we can kind of push and kind of pull, seeing where it is that we could take advantage of to try to get an effect. Like, that's, I think, a little bit interesting to me, you know?
I mean, I talked to Dan. I mean, if one great thing came of that, I could become, you know, friends with Dan. And Dan's such an intelligent guy. And, you know, and I get that. I mean, the thing is that I know as well as Dan that Dan cherry picks what it is that he puts out for content so that it's controversial, so it gets views. And that's the same as most people. It's a hot topic. It's a hot topic to say that, oh, Pete Turner's involved in this controversy where he's going around hacking people's phones. You know, he's got this fleet of WhatsApp messages that he's got everybody's private data and he's breaching it. Let's ring WhatsApp. People actually rang WhatsApp and complained about it. And I just thought, do you know what? If this is the most interesting thing that's happened to you this week, says a lot about your fucking life. Do you know what I mean? I'm not, you know, I said to Dan, I said, look, Dan, I get your point and I understand people's point. But the fact of the matter is this, is that when you bought it, there were 100 booklets and they sold out very quickly. But when you bought it, if you didn't like it, you have more chance of reselling it if you don't talk about how shit it is. Just put it back up for sale and let somebody else buy it. You know.
Well, funny enough, I think either or, you still probably would sell it. You could probably lambast it and shit on it to death, and you still sell it to magicians.
Yeah, I mean that's it. Like I said earlier, controversy sells. But I heard this somewhere. I don't know where I heard it, but do you know who Cliff Richard is? Cliff Richard.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah. You know, all right. So I'll give you another analogy. Do you know Rebecca Black?
Yeah, Friday.
Yeah, are you a fan of Rebecca Black?
When she was a younger teenager singing that, no. But now as an adult, yeah, I'm a fan.
Okay, so as a younger teenager when she sang that, but did that stop it being a #1 hit because you didn't like it?
No. Yeah, you're right.
That's the that's it. For every 1,000 people that's going to say it's shit, there's going to be tens of dozens of people that say it's good. But people like to talk about the negatives surrounding something, and they're the most vocal people, the ones that complain, the ones that have sticks up their asses, the most vocal people. And the people that do like it don't say anything because they're worried then about saying something and being pulled into the controversy themselves, because you can't. That's the problem with freedom of speech. It exists as a great ideology, but in practice it falls flat. You know, all these people that think it's really great and have gone out and got great results from it, they can't open their mouths because then they become part of the controversy and they get pulled to pieces as somebody who's hacking phones and somebody who's breaching somebody's privacy and this, that and the other. So all you ever get to hear is the people that are negatively stacking together to complain about it because they've already scared everybody else off who's going to have a positive opinion about it. You know, and that's it. It's the same with any controversial subject in politics in any area, whether it's about what Donald Trump's done or what current things are happening in the world or, you know, COVID-19, whatever else. Everybody who's speaking towards it in a sense of saying that this is my argument for this, this is my argument for this, and if you don't agree with it, you're part of the problem. So then people can't voice their right to speak because they think, oh, well, I'm going to be perceived as part of the problem here, so I'm just not going to say anything. But then they say, oh, well, if you're indifferent, you're also part of the problem.
Yeah.
So then what happens is that the spectrum slowly shifts round to one way of thinking and one way of speaking, and that's as problematic in itself.
Yeah, you said it right, and you also said the right word, spectrum, because most magicians seem to act like they're on a spectrum. I
think most are. I think honestly, most. and I can say that because I am. That's the thing,
Yeah.
So I have Asperger's. So I could say that I am myself, and I think a lot of us to some degree are.
Uh-huh.
I think the problem is that I'd poke fun at fucking people that are, and I'd poke fun at people that are not. Do you know what I mean? I'm thankful that every single day I wake up with a brain that I have inside my head. I read 3 books, fucking 4 books sometimes a day. I go out and I learn. I'm learning new skills all the time, and I'm thankful for the way my brain's wired, because if it won't be. But yeah. So look, the short of it is this: is that, do you know what? If I were to go back in time, and I were to realize the effect that it were going to have on people promoting that product, when I was sat there and I were typing those words in, if I had a flash of what it were going to do, I'd still fucking do it, right? The fact of the matter is that I'm not going to change my position and my standpoint and my viewpoints because a few people fucking tuck the bollocks in their arsehole and think that I should change the way that I am. It's not going to happen. And if you don't like it, tell me at a convention why you don't like it, and we'll agree to disagree, and we'll have a drink. No hard feelings. Do you know what I mean? I can leave. When me and Dan did that just out of Blackpool, we left our opinions at the door. Do you know what I mean? But calling the police on people, ringing fucking WhatsApp and telling people that people are hacking phones, ringing people. Ryan had a BBC One show at the time, and people ringing the BBC. Do you know, it's petty fucking shit where you're affecting somebody's breadline.
Yeah.
And that I don't like. So my opinion on that is just get a fucking life. Do you know what I mean? I honestly don't care. And so
that's really funny. People ringing up WhatsApp and telling them, hey, you guys are, somebody's using your application for nefarious means, when WhatsApp pretty much has seen me masturbate God knows how many times. They're owned by Facebook. So it's like, you guys have my nudes. Honestly,
G says it to me, like when this controversy is going off over the stack watch, he's like, oh, I hope it doesn't leave a bit of taste in your mouth with us lot. And I'm like, no, not at all. I don't. Look, at the end of the day, I know what my intention is, right? I know what my intention is, and I'm the only person that knows my truth. Do you know what I mean? And you either know that I'm not trying to, with intention, hurt anybody's feelings, or to go against the grain, or to cause, because I don't want to cause controversy, because I don't care. I don't care enough to want to, right? You just got to know my intention is that my heart's in the right place with whatever I do. And if you ask me, am I a good person? I'm a good person that's done bad things. Do you know what I mean? But ultimately, I perceive myself as a good person. I don't purposefully go out of my way to do bad things. I might accidentally do things that rub people up the wrong way. And so the fact is this, that when I made that testimony, I thought there were going to be people out there that were as innocent-minded as me, that liked good magic, that would have been as fooled as I was, and at the same time, I were doing, somebody who'd asked me a favour to give them a testimony with my honest opinions, I were doing something good for them. And I thought, and I wrongly thought, that I were doing good for both camps. And that's why I posted it. And when you realise that people get butthurt about silly shit, you have to look at it and you have to go, okay, Dave's telling me to do things this way because I've offended him. But now I'm doing things the way that Dave wants. Steve's offended at the way that I'm doing things. So I'm going to try to change myself to fit what Steve wants. So I stay in the middle. But guess what? Now I'm pissing Dave and Steve off. And you realise that, everything that you do in life is going to hurt somebody in one way or another. Somebody's going to like it. Someone's going to dislike it. You might wear a cap that's got a fucking upside down cross on it because you have messy hair. And you think, I don't want to burden people with how messy my hair is this morning. So I'll wear a hat. But guess what? I'm pissing somebody off with a symbol on the front of the fucking hat. And that's it. So whatever you do, when you start to get to a certain level or stature where people are listening to what it is you say, you're going to offend somebody.
Absolutely.
So just do things your way, and as long as your intention and you're coming from the right place, from the heart, to not hurt somebody and to not hurt people, if people get offended by it, then fuck them. That's their problems that they need to work out themselves. And it's something they need to introvertly look at themselves and question themselves about. Because I can't carry that weight. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't want the burden of having to deal with mental health issues because I'm trying to please too many people. The anxiety and stresses are trying to deal with everybody else's problems. The weight of trying to carry everybody else's situations on my back when I have enough shit to deal with myself. Do you know what I mean? My son's getting to become a teenager. I'm going to have all those problems to deal with. I'd rather be dealing with that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'd rather be thinking to myself, well, what happens if everything doesn't pan out with illusionists, and now I have to work out how to keep food on my family's table? Do you know what I mean? Like when shit's going up and down with relationships, I want to worry about that. Do you know what I mean? I want to worry about my friends. I want to be there for my friends when they're going through situations and problems. I don't want to argue the semantics of whether I think fucking hacking a phone's wrong or right. Do you know what I mean? I'm not. In comparison, it seems a lot. Do you know what I mean? It seems a lot smaller when you look at it from that perspective, and that's it. So yeah, so I know I went off on a bit of a tangent.
No, it's fine. That's perfectly fine. I think that it's
Some valid points.
No, of course, the entire thing's valid. You know, it's word against word here and semantics. And you're right, it's an argument about semantics in that case. But it's definitely good to hear your side and hear your take on it, because it was something that was kind of like I would say a good point for a little bit. You know, like that sort of controversy per se.
They have as much of a free right to say what they felt about it than I do to back it. But ultimately, don't forget that I didn't create it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like we're arguing about my opinion on somebody else's effect. When you look at it from that perspective, it's silly. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not my effect. Go talk and argue with the creator, the person that invented it, that put it on the market, that wrote the book, that's selling the book, that you bought it from, that your money went into their pocket.
People just want to fight.
Well, I was gonna say the worst thing I think that Ryan Tricks has ever come up with is that name, Ryan Tricks. Like I don't know, I'm not a. It's like I'm a magician. My name's Ryan. What am I gonna call myself? Oh, I got it.
His last name. His last name's actually Hicks.
Huh?
His last name's Hicks.
Hicks. That's fucking funny.
Yeah,
Ryan Tricks
his name's
and Hicks.
So if you're a little bit drunk.
No, it's Brian Hicks. That's his real name, Brian Hicks.
Wow. Okay. So if you're a little bit drunk and you're slurring, you're like Ryan Tricks.
Yeah.
That's horrendous.
He's probably watching. I'm going to get a message afterwards saying you absolute twat.
I think on that, Peter, I think we've had a very detailed, deep conversation. I'm definitely now more sexually attracted to you than ever. And usually I don't like tattoos. So you've converted me to now be attracted to a strong, burly man with tattoos.
Well, there you go then. See, there is chance for change. And if you didn't like Breached and you listen to what I said, change your mind now and then apologize to me. Buy me a whiskey and it's all forgotten.
Yeah, apparently since you've never paid for one since 2007.
2015.
2015.
Do you know what? Do you know what we're funny about that? And so I'll tail off on this and I'll say bye on this point. Is that I find when I'm in performing situations, I like, you know, there's obviously a lot of people out there that really fucking appealed to because the vast amount of sales, but like framing when you're marketing your materials, you know, Uri says that as long as they're spelling your name right, Uri Geller, which is one of my favorite performers of all time, as long as they're spelling your name right, at least it's all right. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing worse than fucking putting out a shitty marketing strategy and then they accidentally spell your name wrong. And that happens to Fraser Parker all the time. Yeah. They spell it Z or Frazier Parker.
That's a hard name.
So, yeah, it's the fucking best. So you know, I'm thankful that I've got an easy name to remember and I look like a tattooed twat. So it's easy to remember my face as well.
That Peter Cherner guy was great. He really churned it up. That's my Danny joke
right.
over
there. Go enjoy your night. You know, go. It's message me as Ryan now, Brian Hicks. He's messaged me now. Wait a second. Let me see if I can get him on the call. This is going to be hilarious.
Yeah. Call him Brian. That's great.
He's here. Brian Hicks is here. Do you want to say hello?
Put it up a little bit.
So this is the live. So they've just asked me about Breached, and they said, "What do you think about the controversy over Breached?" And so Pigcake said the only thing that's ever been bad that you've ever created is your last name, Tricks. And I said that.
Mate, you know what? I'm going to tell you now, it's true, because I always say, I never like leaving a room thinking what I've just performed for them, it's a trick. And they're like, but your name's Ryan Tricks. I'm like, very true.
It's fucking ridiculous.
I told him your real name.
No, you didn't.
I did. I told him that you were called Brian Hicks.
I fucking.
So listen, I'm going, Ryan. I'm just wrapping up this call. Bye.
That's horrendous. Well, Peter, we've I think showed your channel a little bit, even though
I
I'm not
showed
sure
it all.
what fact-
I showed it all.
But I do want to thank you just here on the actual show, and just thank you for talking for I think 3 hours now on I would say a plethora of topics: cars, magic, mentalism. Unfortunately, magic and mentalism, but it's something that I think the target audience would enjoy. But I do thank you for that. Do you have any parting words?
Yeah, if you're not following me on Instagram, it's _Peter_Turner. Follow me on Instagram, and if you want to keep up to date with what I'm doing, search me out on YouTube, because there's going to be updates on there. If you're not subscribed to my channel, subscribe so that you can keep up to date with my antics, adventures, and everything else in between.
That's hot.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it, Peter, man. Much love, dude.
But apart from that, I just want to say thank you guys for watching.
Are we going to end the stream like 100%?
Yeah.
Like, this is over?
This is over, like
Okay.
permanently. It's done at this point.
All right, well, then, Peter, I think this is over. All right, so Piggy's going to say goodbye.
I did. I already did.
Did you already say goodbye? All right, blink when you want me to end the stream.
You are as useful as a fucking